those that inherited the colonial mantle, didn't think it was politic to revive India's socio-cultural history, lest they be accused of pandering to one community, the Hindu community. Why governments after independence viewed Hindu civilizational renaissance through a religious lens is mystifying. It's beyond my understanding, but the reticence had the undesirable effect of preventing India from restoring vast swathes of its wounded civilization. Already, many skeptics are questioning why the Prime Minister of a secular republic is actively partaking in a religious celebration or identifying himself with one denomination. Viewers, the debate, of course, will continue to rage. But I want to quickly keep the visuals of today's function on one side and a view of the Prime Minister on the other. And I want to go across to Dushyant Sridhar, who is a Vedic scholar who joins us. Dushyant Sridhar, a very good evening to you. Thank you for giving me time here on India Up Front. Many people today talk about this entire rebirth from the prism of religion. No one sees this from the socio-cultural prism. Why is that? And where are we to locate these events, these pictures that are coming to us, this rebirth, this renaissance in our history?
Namaskaram Rahul, and namaskaram to all the viewers of Times Now. First I would like to give my obeisances and salutations to this beautiful bhumi of Ujjain, where this Mahakal Kaleshwar temple corridor is situated. In fact, Rahul, we as a civilization, we just don't stick to the religious ethos, we also have a huge literary value. Mahakavi Kalidasa, they say Upama Kalidasasya Bharaver Arthagauravam. If there has to be one poet who has to give beautiful similes, it has to be Kalidasa. In Kalidasa's works, one work which talks about the message that was sent through the clouds is Meghadutam. And Meghadutam is a Sanskrit poem which is centered in Ujjain, the place where our Honorable Prime Minister is. So Kalidasa says, Kaschit Kanta Virahaguruna Swadhikarat Pramattaha Shapena Stangamitama Varshabhogyena Bartuhu Yakshas Chakre Janakatanayan Stana Punyodakeshu Snigdhaschaya Tarushu Vasatim Ramagiri Ashrameshu. So this is that land which is also the center of another beautiful Sanskrit work called Mritchakatikam by Shudraka, which later became into a movie called Utsav by the late Girish Karnad. And this is also one of the lands, Rahul, which I would like to remind the viewers, which was once a victim to the attack by the Umayyad Empire, the dynasty which was a part of the caliphate that came under the Holy Prophet. So the city has seen the best and the worst. So it is very, very important for the country, where when I say the country, the government of the day, to be a balm to the pain that the people have undergone for generations together. And so this corridor comes at the right time. And to your question as to why some of them see these acts of the government as a kind of bending or tilting towards one religion, probably they shouldn't be seeing it from the religio-centric perspective. They should see from the ethos of a civilization. This is probably the only civilization, the Vedic civilization, which we have borrowed from the Indus Valley civilization, that has managed to survive so many millenniums of onslaught, and it has still managed to survive, whereas most other civilizations like the Sumerian, the Persian, the Egyptian, the Mesopotamian have just vanished. They've just gone into thin air. So we are supposed to be very indebted to the government of the day for reviving and being a balm. Okay, let's go across to the Prime Minister. He's just begun speaking.
Mahakal Mahadev, Mahakal Mahaprabhu, Mahakal Maharudra, Mahakal Namostute. उज्जैन की पवित्र पुण्य भूमि पर इस अविस्मरणीय कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित देश भर से आए सभी चरण वंद्य संतगण, सम्माननीय साधु सन्यासीगण, मध्य प्रदेश के राज्यपाल श्रीमान मंगूभाई पटेल, छत्तीसगढ़ की राज्यपाल बहन अनसुईया उइके जी, झारखंड के राज्यपाल श्रीमान रमेश बैस जी, मध्य प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री भाई शिवराज सिंह चौहान जी, केंद्रीय मंत्रिमंडल के मेरे सहयोगी, राज्य सरकार के मंत्रीगण, सांसदगण, विधायकगण, भगवान महाकाल के सभी कृपा पात्र श्रद्धालुगण, देवी और सज्जनों, जय महाकाल। उज्जैन की ये ऊर्जा, ये उत्साह, अवंतिका की ये आभा, ये अद्भुतता, ये आनंद, महाकाल की ये महिमा, ये महात्म्य महाकाल लोक में लौकिक कुछ भी नहीं है। शंकर ये सानिध्य में साधारण कुछ भी नहीं है। सब कुछ अलौकिक है, असाधारण है, अविस्मरणीय है, अविश्वसनीय है। मैं आज महसूस कर रहा हूं, हमारी तपस्या और आस्था से जब महाकाल प्रसन्न होते हैं तो उनके आशीर्वाद से ऐसे ही भव्य स्वरूप का निर्माण होता है। और महाकाल का आशीर्वाद जब मिलता है तो काल की रेखाएं मिट जाती है, समय की सीमाएं सिमट जाती है और अनंत के अवसर प्रस्फुटित हो जाते हैं। अंत से अनंत यात्रा आरंभ हो जाती है। महाकाल लोक की ये भव्यता भी समय की सीमाओं से परे आने वाली कई पीढ़ियों को अलौकिक दिव्यता के दर्शन कराएगी। भारत की सांस्कृतिक और आध्यात्मिक चेतना को ऊर्जा देगी। मैं इस अद्भुत अवसर पर राजाधिराज महाकाल के चरणों में शत शत नमन करता हूं। मैं आप सभी को, देश और दुनिया में महाकाल के सभी भक्तों को हृदय से बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। विशेष रूप से भाई शिवराज सिंह चौहान और उनकी सरकार, उनका मैं हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूं, जो लगातार इतने समर्पण से इस सेवा यज्ञ में लगे हुए हैं। साथ ही मैं मंदिर ट्रस्ट से जुड़े सभी लोगों का, संतों और विद्वानों का भी आदरपूर्वक धन्यवाद करता हूं, जिनके सहयोग से इस प्रयास को सफल किया है। साथियों, महाकाल की नगरी उज्जैन के बारे में हमारे यहां कहा गया है, प्रलयो न बाधते, प्रलयो न बाधते तत्र महाकालपुरी, अर्थात महाकाल की नगरी प्रलय के प्रहार से भी मुक्त है। हजारों वर्ष पूर्व जब भारत का भौगोलिक स्वरूप आज से अलग रहा होगा, तब से ये माना जाता रहा है कि उज्जैन भारत के केंद्र में है। एक तरह से ज्योतिषीय गणनाओं में उज्जैन न केवल भारत का केंद्र रहा है, बल्कि ये भारत की आत्मा का भी केंद्र रहा है। ये वो नगर है जो हमारी पवित्र 7 पुरियों में से एक गिना जाता है। ये वो नगर है जहां स्वयं भगवान कृष्ण ने भी आकर शिक्षा ग्रहण की थी। उज्जैन ने महाराजा विक्रमादित्य का वो प्रताप देखा है जिसने भारत के नए स्वर्ण काल की शुरुआत की थी। महाकाल की इस धरती से विक्रम संवत के रूप में भारतीय काल गणना का एक नया अध्याय शुरू हुआ था। उज्जैन के क्षण क्षण में, पल पल में इतिहास सिमटा हुआ है। कण कण में आध्यात्म समाया हुआ है और कोने कोने में ईश्वरीय ऊर्जा संचारित हो रही है। यहां काल चक्र का 84 कल्पों का प्रतिनिधित्व करते 84 शिवलिंग है। यहां 4 महावीर है, 6 विनायक है, 8 भैरव है, 8 मातृकाएं हैं, 9 ग्रह है, 10 विष्णु है, 11 रुद्र है, 12 आदित्य है, 24 देवियां है और 88 तीर्थ है। और इन सबके केंद्र में राजाधिराज, कालाधिराज महाकाल विराजमान है। यानी एक तरह से हमारे पूरे ब्रह्मांड की ऊर्जा को हमारे ऋषियों ने प्रतीक स्वरूप में उज्जैन में स्थापित किया हुआ है। इसलिए उज्जैन ने हजारों वर्षों तक भारत की संपन्नता और समृद्धि का, ज्ञान और गरिमा का, सभ्यता और साहित्य का नेतृत्व किया है। इस नागरी का वास्तु कैसा था, वैभव कैसा था, शिल्प कैसा था, सौंदर्य कैसा था, इसके दर्शन हमें महाकवि कालिदास के मेघदूतम में होते हैं। बाण भट्ट जैसे कवियों के काव्यों में यहां की संस्कृति और परंपराओं का चित्रण हमें आज भी मिलता है। यही नहीं, मध्यकाल के लेखकों ने भी यहां के स्थापत्य और वास्तुकला का गुणगान किया है। भाइयों और बहनों, किसी राष्ट्र का सांस्कृतिक वैभव इतना विशाल तभी होता है जब उसकी सफलता का परचम विश्व पटल पर लहरा रहा होता है। और सफलता के शिखर तक पहुंचने के लिए भी ये जरूरी है कि राष्ट्र अपने सांस्कृतिक उत्कर्ष को छुए, अपनी पहचान के साथ गौरव से सर उठा करके खड़ा हो जाए। इसलिए आजादी के अमृत काल में भारत ने गुलामी की मानसिकता से मुक्ति और अपनी विरासत पर गर्व जैसे पंच प्राण का आह्वान किया है। इसलिए आज अयोध्या में भव्य राम मंदिर का निर्माण पूरी गति से हो रहा है। काशी में विश्वनाथ धाम भारत की सांस्कृतिक राजनीति का गौरव, राजधानी का गौरव बढ़ा रहा है। सोमनाथ में विकास के कार्य नए कीर्तिमान स्थापित कर रहे हैं। उत्तराखंड में बाबा केदार के आशीर्वाद से केदारनाथ, बद्रीनाथ तीर्थ क्षेत्र में विकास के नए अध्याय लिखे जा रहे हैं। आजादी के बाद पहली बार 4 धाम प्रोजेक्ट के जरिए हमारे चारों धाम ऑल वेदर रोड से जुड़ने जा रहे हैं। इतना ही नहीं, आजादी के बाद पहली बार करतारपुर साहब कॉरिडोर खुला है, हेमकुंड साहिब रोपवे से जुड़ने जा रहा है। इसी तरह स्वदेश दर्शन और प्रसाद योजना से देश भर में हमारी आध्यात्मिक चेतना के ऐसे कितने ही केंद्रों का गौरव पुनः स्थापित हो रहा है। और अब इसी कड़ी में ये भव्य, अति भव्य महाकाल लोक भी अतीत के गौरव के साथ भविष्य के स्वागत के लिए तैयार हो चुका है। आज जब हम उत्तर से दक्षिण तक, पूरब से पश्चिम तक अपने प्राचीन मंदिरों को देखते हैं तो उनकी विशालता, उनका वास्तु हमें आश्चर्य से भर देता है। कोणार्क का सूर्य मंदिर हो या महाराष्ट्र में एलोरा का कैलाश मंदिर, ये विश्व में किसी विस्मित नहीं कर देते। कोणार्क सूर्य मंदिर के तरह ही गुजरात का मोढेरा सूर्य मंदिर भी है, जहां सूर्य की प्रथम किरणें सीधे गर्भगृह तक प्रवेश करती है। इसी तरह तमिलनाडु के तंजौर में राजा राजचौल द्वारा बनाया गया ब्रह्मदेवेश्वर मंदिर है। कांचीपुरम में वरदराजा पेरुमल मंदिर है। रामेश्वरम में रामनाथ स्वामी मंदिर है। बेलूर का चन्नकेशवा मंदिर है। मदुराई का मीनाक्षी मंदिर है। तेलंगाना का रामप्पा मंदिर है। श्रीनगर में शंकराचार्य मंदिर है। ऐसे कितने ही मंदिर हैं। वो बेजोड़ है, कल्पनातीत है, न भूतो न भविष्यति के जीवंत उदाहरण है। जब इन्हें देखते हैं तब सोचने को मजबूर हो जाते हैं, उस दौर में, उस युग में किस तकनीक से इन निर्माण हुए होंगे। हमारे सारे प्रश्नों के उत्तर हमें भले ही न मिलते हो, लेकिन इन मंदिरों के आध्यात्मिक सांस्कृतिक संदेश हमें उतनी ही स्पष्टता से आज भी सुनाई देते हैं। जब पीढ़ियां इस विरासत को देखती हैं, उसके संदेशों को सुनती हैं, तो एक सभ्यता के रूप में ये हमारी निरंतरता और अमरता का जरिया बन जाता है। महाकाल लोक में ये परंपरा उतने ही प्रभावी ढंग से कला और शिल्प के द्वारा उकेरी गई है। ये पूरा मंदिर प्रांगण शिव पुराण की कथाओं के आधार पर तैयार किया गया है। आप यहां आएंगे तो महाकाल के दर्शन के साथ ही आपको महाकाल की महिमा और महत्व के भी दर्शन होंगे। पंचमुखी शिव, उनके डमरू, सर्प, त्रिशूल, अर्धचंद्र और सप्तऋषि, इनके भी उतने ही भव्य स्वरूप यहां स्थापित किए गए हैं। ये वास्तु, इसमें ज्ञान का ये समावेश, ये महाकाल लोक को उसके प्राचीन गौरव से जोड़ देता है, उसकी सार्थकता को और भी बढ़ा देता है। भाइयों और बहनों, हमारे शास्त्रों में एक वाक्य है, शिवम ज्ञानम, शिवम ज्ञानम। इसका अर्थ है शिव ही ज्ञान है और ज्ञान ही शिव है। शिव के दर्शन में ही ब्रह्मांड का सर्वोच्च दर्शन है और दर्शन ही शिव का दर्शन है। इसलिए मैं मानता हूं हमारे ज्योतिर्लिंगों का ये विकास भारत की आध्यात्मिक ज्योति का विकास है, भारत के ज्ञान और दर्शन का विकास है। भारत का ये सांस्कृतिक दर्शन एक बार फिर शिखर पर पहुंचकर विश्व के मार्गदर्शन के लिए तैयार हो रहा है। साथियों, भगवान महाकाल एकमात्र ऐसे ज्योतिर्लिंग है जो दक्षिण मुखी है। ये शिव के ऐसे स्वरूप है जिसकी भस्म आरती पूरे विश्व में प्रसिद्ध है। हर भक्त अपने जीवन में भस्म आरती के दर्शन जरूर करना चाहता है। भस्म आरती का धार्मिक महत्व यहां उपस्थित आप सब संतगण ज्यादा गहराई से पता पाएंगे, लेकिन मैं इस परंपरा में हमें भारत की जीवटता और जीवंतता के दर्शन भी करता हूं। मैं इसमें भारत के अपराजेय अस्तित्व को भी देखता हूं, क्योंकि जो शिव सोयम भूति विभूषण, सोयम भूति विभूषण अर्थात भस्म को धारण करने वाले हैं, वो सर्वाधिपः सर्वदा भी है, अर्थात वो अनस्व और अविनाशी भी है। इसलिए जहां महाकाल है वहां कालखंडों की सीमाएं नहीं है। महाकाल की शरण में विश्व में भी स्पंदन होता है। महाकाल के सानिध्य में अवसान से भी पुनर्जीवन होता है, अंत से भी अनंत की यात्रा आरंभ होती है। यही हमारी सभ्यता का वो आध्यात्मिक आत्मविश्वास है जिसके सामर्थ्य से भारत हजारों वर्षों से अमर बना हुआ है, अजरा अमर बना हुआ है। अब तक हमारी आस्था के केंद्र जागृत है, भारत की चेतना जागृत है, भारत की आत्मा जागृत है। अतीत में हमने देखा है प्रयास हुए, परिस्थितियां पलटी, सत्ताएं बदली, भारत का शोषण भी हुआ, आजादी भी गई। इल्तुतमिश जैसे आक्रमणकारियों ने उज्जैन की ऊर्जा को भी नष्ट करने के प्रयास किए, लेकिन हमारे ऋषियों ने कहा है, चंद्रशेखरम आश्रये, चंद्रशेखरम आश्रये मम किम करिष्यति व्ययम, अर्थात महाकाल शिव की शरण में अरे मृत्यु भी हमारा क्या कर लेगा। और इसलिए भारत अपनी आस्था के इन प्रामाणिक केंद्रों की ऊर्जा से फिर पुनर्जीवित हो उठा, फिर उठ खड़ा हुआ। हमने फिर अपने अमरत्व की वैसी ही विश्वव्यापी घोषणा कर दी। भारत ने फिर महाकाल के आशीष से काल के कपाल पर कालातीत अस्तित्व का शिलालेख लिख दिया। आज एक बार फिर आजादी के इस अमृत काल में अमर अवंतिका भारत के सांस्कृतिक अमरत्व की घोषणा कर रही है। उज्जैन जो हजारों वर्षों से भारतीय काल गणना का केंद्र बिंदु रहा है, वो आज एक बार फिर भारत की भव्यता के एक नए कालखंड का उद्घोष कर रहा है। साथियों, भारत के लिए धर्म का अर्थ है हमारे कर्तव्यों का सामूहिक संकल्प। हमारे संकल्पों का ध्येय है विश्व का कल्याण, मानव मात्र की सेवा। हम शिव की आराधना भी कहते हैं, नमामि विश्वस्य हिते रतम एतम, नमामि विश्वस्य हिते रतम तम, नमामि रूपाणी बहुनी दत्ते। अर्थात हम उन विश्वपति भगवान शिव को नमन करते हैं जो अनेक रूपों से पूरे विश्व के हितों में लगे हैं। यही भावना हमेशा भारत के तीर्थों, मंदिरों, मठों और आस्था केंद्रों की भी रही है। यहां महाकाल मंदिर में पूरे देश और दुनिया से लोग आते हैं। सिंहस्थ कुंभ लगता है तो लाखों लोग जुड़ते हैं। अनगिनत विविधताएं भी एक मंत्र, एक संकल्प लेकर एक साथ जुड़ सकती है। इससे बड़ा क्या उदाहरण क्या हो सकता है। और हम जानते हैं, हजारों साल से हमारे कुंभ मेले की परंपरा बहुत ही सामूहिक मंथन के बाद जो अमृत निकलता है, उसे संकल्प लेकर के 12 साल तक उसको क्रियान्वित करने की परंपरा रही थी। फिर 12 साल के बाद जब कुंभ होता था, फिर एक बार अमृत मंथन होता था, फिर संकल्प लिया जाता था, फिर 12 साल के लिए चल पड़ते हैं। पिछले यहां कुंभ के मेले में मुझे आने का सौभाग्य मिला था। महाकाल का बुलावा आया और ये बेटा आए बिना कैसे रह सकता है। और उस समय कुंभ की हजारों साल की पुरानी परंपरा, उस समय जो मन मस्तिष्क में मंथन चल रहा था, जो विचार प्रवाह बह रहा था, मां क्षिप्रा के तट पे अनेक विचारों से मैं घिरा हुआ था और उसी में से मन कर गया। कुछ शब्द चल पड़े, पता नहीं कहां से आए, कैसे आए, और जो भाव पैदा हुआ था वो संकल्प बन गया। आज वो सृष्टि के रूप में नजर आ रहा है। दोस्त, मैं ऐसे साथियों को बधाई देता हूं कि जिन्होंने उस समय के उस भाव को आज चरितार्थ करके दिखाया है। सबके मन में शिव और शिवत्व के लिए समर्पण, सबके मन में क्षिप्रा के लिए श्रद्धा, जीव और प्रकृति के लिए संवेदनशीलता, और इतना बड़ा समागम विश्व के हित के लिए, विश्व की भलाई के लिए कितनी प्रेरणा यहां निकल सकती है। भाई और बहनों, हमारे इन तीर्थों ने सदियों से राष्ट्र को संदेश भी दिए हैं और सामर्थ्य भी दिया है। काशी जैसे हमारे केंद्र धर्म के साथ साथ ज्ञान, दर्शन और कला की राजधानी भी रहे। उज्जैन जैसे हमारे स्थान खगोल विज्ञान, एस्ट्रोनॉमी से जुड़े शोधों के शीर्ष केंद्र रहे हैं। आज नया भारत जब अपने प्राचीन मूल्यों के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है तो आस्था के साथ साथ विज्ञान और शोध की परंपराओं को भी पुनर्जीवित कर रहा है। आज हम एस्ट्रोनॉमी के क्षेत्र में दुनिया की बड़ी ताकतों के बराबर खड़े हो रहे हैं। आज भारत दूसरे देशों की सैटेलाइट भी स्पेस में लॉन्च कर रहा है। मिशन चंद्रयान और मिशन गगनयान जैसे अभियानों के जरिए भारत आकाश की वो छलांग लगाने के लिए तैयार है जो हमें एक नई ऊंचाई देगी। आज रक्षा के क्षेत्र में भारत पूरी ताकत से आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर आगे बढ़ रहा है। इसी तरह आज हमारे युवा स्किल हो, स्पोर्ट्स में भी स्टार्टअप, एक चीज नहीं, नए स्टार्टअप के साथ, नए यूनिकॉर्न के साथ हर क्षेत्र में भारत की प्रतिभा का डंका बजा रहे हैं। और भाइयों बहनों, हमें भी याद रखना है, ये न भूले, जहां इनोवेशन है वहीं पर रिनोवेशन भी है। हमने गुलामी के कालखंड में जो खोया, आज भारत उसे रिनोवेट कर रहा है। अपने गौरव की, अपने वैभव की पुनर्स्थापना हो रही है और इसका लाभ सिर्फ भारत के लोगों को नहीं, विश्वास रखिए साथियों, महाकाल के चरणों में बैठे हैं, विश्वास से भर जाइए। और मैं विश्वास से कहता हूं, इसका लाभ पूरे विश्व को मिलेगा, पूरी मानवता को मिलेगा। महाकाल के आशीर्वाद से भारत की भव्यता पूरे विश्व के विकास के लिए नई संभावनाओं को जन्म देगी। भारत की दिव्यता पूरे विश्व के लिए शांति के मार्ग प्रशस्त करेगी। इसी विश्वास के साथ भगवान महाकाल के चरणों में मैं एक बार फिर सर झुका करके प्रणाम करता हूं। मेरे साथ पूरे भक्ति भाव से बोलिए, जय महाकाल, जय 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 जय महाकाल।
Viewers, on your screen, the Prime Minister just finishing an electrifying address. He says, in sum, where there is renovation, there is innovation. India is restoring its spiritual, scientific and cultural glory. And in a sense, viewers, as we were talking just a short while ago, the Prime Minister seems to have decoupled this entire Renaissance from religion. Mr. Sridhar, what is the message that you took away from the Prime Minister's speech here?
Rahul, namaskaram to your viewers again. I would like to extend my wishes to all the Astikas in the country for this beautiful inauguration of the project in a very, very ancient city called the Ujjain. Now, a few takeaways from our Honorable Prime Minister. One, this shouldn't be just linked with the religion. the religiocentric part of it, it has a larger purpose. It serves the purpose of the civilization. We have been a very, very ancient as well as a surviving and a living civilization, Rahul. There have been many civilizations which were as good as ours, but they've just vanished in thin air, like the Sumerian, the Persian, the Mesopotamian, the Egyptian civilization, even parts of Chinese civilization, the Huanghu have vanished in thin air. But this is the only civilization that has managed to survive so many invasions, so many onslaughts. So, besides seeing this as a project that is meant to revive a Shiva temple, the larger purpose what the Prime Minister conveyed is to look into our roots, look into the ethos of the civilization so that we could look productively into the future. A civilization that doesn't value its past, that doesn't value its history, that doesn't value its roots, can never see a bright future. So he also highlighted that currently the country, if at all it is managed in the post-pandemic era amidst a lot of other global crises, that's because we have always looked to our civilization with great pride. When we say we look at our civilization in great pride, we don't try to demean any religion or any culture, just that we are a part of this land. So every person, immaterial of which religion they uphold, they should feel proud about this project. Suppose a person is born in the United Kingdom, immaterial of his religion, he will feel proud about Shakespeare. So if a person is born in Greece, they will feel proud about Odyssey and Iliad. So if you're a person who is born in this Bharata Bhumi, immaterial of the religion you follow, you should know that Kalidasas Meghadutam Kaschit Kanta Viraha Guruna Swadhikarat Pramattaha Shapena Stanga Mitamahima Varshabhogyena Bartuhu came from the land of Ujjain. And if we talk about Lord Shri Krishna, who was born in Mathura, who grew up in Gokulam and Vrindavanam, who settled in Dwaraka, you know which was his Ivy League university? It was Ujjain. He studied under Sandipani's ashram. Chatusashti Ratrim Ahobihi Sarvajnastvam Sahamusalina, says Narayana Bhattadri, the 16th century poet. So Ujjain is absolutely the center of knowledge. It is the center of Shaivism. It is the center of Vaishnavism. It has links to the civilization and literature. So my way of decoupling it from religion is, please don't look at this as a religious-centric event. If at all if there is an accusation that he concentrates on Hindu-oriented projects, he has been a part of so many Sikh projects, Sikh-related projects, right from the Kartarpur Sahib, and then he has been a part of so many projects linked to Buddhism. Jainism, he was in Shravanabelagula to celebrate Jainism. So let's look at it from a larger perspective and let's not get very, very narrow-minded is what my opinion is, Rahul.
Dushyant Sridhar, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Viewers, of course, you saw this glittering ceremony, and I want to get a further perspective on this Hindu Renaissance under the Prime Minister and its meaning, and let's try to locate it in the broader narrative that Mr. Sridhar has also talked about. We'll be going across to Mr. Amish Tripathi, who needs no introduction. But just before that, viewers, very quickly, I'll take these pictures full frame just once for all of you as the Prime Minister exits this grand complex, this grand corridor that will now be open to all of us. Viewers, we are talking with celebrated author Amish Tripathi, needs no introduction. I think most Indians would have read his works and his trilogies on Indian mythology. Thanks for joining me today on Times Now. As you know, Mr. Tripathi, the ancient Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain has got a massive makeover. The Prime Minister has inaugurated the new refurbished 900-meter long corridor called the Mahakal Lok, billed as one of the largest such corridors. I want to ask you a couple of questions on this. As a Shiv devotee, what does this mean to you first, on a personal note?
It is a very, very important activity, Rahul. I must say honestly, as a proud Lord Shiva devotee, I have of course prayed at Mahakaleshwar ji often, and in ancient times, sadly, the Mahakaleshwar had suffered iconoclastic attacks. Iltutmish had attacked it, and in modern times, sadly, encroachments have eaten into the temple precincts. There is a wonderful lake right right next to Mahakaleshwar ji, called Rudra Sagar Lake. It's been mentioned in the Puranas as well. And that lake had been encroached, much of the waters had dried up, it had become a sewage dump. And for those of us who are devotees of Lord Shiva, it would be very depressing to walk through all of this as we go to pray to our Lord. And it's very nice. I had the honor of visiting the Mahakal Lok 2 weeks back. When I visited Madhya Pradesh, and I saw the wonderful work the MP government has done, what Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan ji has done, and the Rudra Sagar Lake has been revived. The precincts have been cleared, and the houses have been brought back with compensation paid. So it all happened very peacefully. Beautiful Mahakal Lok has been built around it with 4 gates leading up to it, and the imagery you're showing, the beautiful statues of Lord Shiva, of the Saptarishis, of various stories and legends around Lord Shiva. They've all been depicted, and much of it, as you can see, Rahul, very clearly, has been built in the traditional style. So with graven images, with thick walls, the way it should be done. And what this will also do is, of course, not just make it so beautiful and make it a positive experience for devotees who visit Mahakaleshwar ji, it also helps revive ancient arts, many of which were dying out. When temples like this are redone, many of the ancient arts get revived as well. It's a wonderful project, and my compliments to both the MP government and the central government in seeing this through.
Mr. Tripathi, when you were walking through this complex, as you said that you were invited a few weeks back, etc., to go through, what struck you? What were the things that spoke to you, so to speak?
In many ways, I think what one is seeing across the country, across the temple, and I've seen it at Kashi Vishwanath Dham, you would have seen that. There's wonderful work going on at Kedarnath ji as well, where many of our temple precincts are being, and all of them have been inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi ji. What is happening is almost a revival of temple structures across. What many don't know is that the only religion whose worship places can be legally taken over by the government is Hinduism. Our temples are taken over by the government, and often very badly run. In many states, temple lands have been encroached, and the administrations have sold off those lands. Things aren't maintained properly, and which is very sad to see. What one likes to see now in a place like Mahakaleshwar ji and at others that are being built up is that actually it's not just that we as devotees will go to the temple, do our puja and leave. We can, even around the temple, there are statues, there are exhibitions. We can engage with our culture, engage with our religion, engage with our way of life. The various stories have been depicted. So even out there, of course, Lord Shiva is at the heart of it, but Goddess Parvati, their 2 sons, Lord Ganesh, Lord Kartik, you see them. You see the Saptarishis, the 7 great sages. Various stories of Lord Shiva have been depicted around the entire lok, like the Tripurasur, so many others, the Veerbhadra, killing of Daksha. Many of these episodes have been depicted. We get to know more of the legends of Lord Shiva. Even a visitor just going to the temple can see so much of that. And there's a sense of pride and rootedness that comes on seeing something like this.
So it's interesting because you've argued how this revamp is a significant event in India's journey as a civilizational state. What do you mean by this exactly?
Look, Rahul, you covered this, many subjects like this in a very intelligent and nuanced manner, because our way of life is not just about the rituals. They are important. I'm not denying that. Of course, they are important. But you cover many of the other aspects as well. Among the things that we have forgotten is that Ujjain was the zero meridian in ancient times, prior to when Greenwich became the zero meridian. And this has been mentioned in the Surya Siddhanta, which is what, at least 1500 to 2000 years old, and till today, the Kal Nirnay, calendar that comes to us, which defines, for all of us dharmic people, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikhs, which defines our festivals, our various rituals. That is all calculated with Ujjain as zero meridian. And if you think about it, Ujjain is also a logical place from which time could be calculated. Ujjain in ancient times, by the way, was called the navel of the world by Indians, because Ujjain is a place where the zero meridian and the Tropic of Cancer bisect. Right? Tropic of Cancer, as you know, is where the sun is right overhead on summer solstice, which in the Indian way is called Dakshinayan. And so at Ujjain on the summer solstice day, the sun is right overhead. It becomes a perfect place to calculate time, to see it as the navel of the world. In Greenwich, the sun is never overhead. It's above the Tropic of Cancer. So many of, in ancient times, great mathematicians, like Bhaskaracharya, Varamira, they would come to Ujjain. It was a center of science, of astronomy, of the observation of the universe, of the skies. We need to revive many of those those ancient traditions. We had great universities out there. Again, sadly, they were destroyed by invaders, but nothing is stopping us from rebuilding those universities. In ancient times, Rahul, on the day of Dakshinayan, the sun's rays would fall directly on the spire of Mahakaleshwar ji. That's the logic of the name, if you think about it. Mahakal, the great lord of time, Mahakaleshwar. There's a logic to that name as well.
So it's not random, that's what you're saying. There was a lot of thought that went behind, obviously, the Jyotirling, one of the 12, found there by Lord Shiva himself. So clearly there was a logic behind a lot of this. Now, you're talking about the room for mythologies, yes, but there's also, of course, this is a place which is a center of learning. Now, this very important intellectual tradition that was centered around some of our greatest civilizational cities, which are still around, of course. This is a very important concept, isn't it? I mean, in the journey towards reclaiming our ancient scientific practices and building upon those.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you, Rahul. I mean, there's sadly, it's almost become fashionable in India to blame foreigners and the British Raj for what they've done. Look, the British had their own selfish interest in doing what they did, but we've been free for 75 years now. What's stopping us from reviving many of these ancient traditions? Our ancestors left behind a large number of manuscripts. There are 3 million Sanskrit handwritten manuscripts that survive to this day as tabulated by the National Mission of Manuscripts. That's more than the rest of the ancient world combined, and a vast majority of these manuscripts are actually scientific texts, medicine, physics, astronomy, so many others. We need to study them, we need to translate them first of all, and reviving many of these ancient centers of learning will help us revive the true treasures of our heritage. Look, things like gold, etc., money, that can be earned back, but knowledge is the true the treasure that our ancestors blessed us with. And so many of us Indians, we don't know that Ujjain was, for example, zero meridian. Many of the mathematical concepts that are discussed to this day actually originated in India. Algebra, has been as a corruption of the Arab, who is supposed to have come up with those concepts, Al-Khwarizm. But Al-Khwarizm himself did not plagiarize. He actually wrote, the title of his book was Kitab al-Hisab al-Hindi, that is the book of Indian mathematics. What we know as Fibonacci series. Fibonacci himself called it the India series. Now, so they weren't lying. They didn't plagiarize. Many of those concepts came from India. In fact, many of them were actually studied in Ujjain, which in ancient times was called Avanti. So I would submit that the revival of the Mahakaleshwar ji temple and of the Mahakal Lok, we should not just see it as something about rituals and about the beautification of our temple. We should revive our ancient scientific traditions, many of which were centered around these great holy cities. Ujjain, of course, very major in that.
The Mahakaleshwar Jyotirlinga is Dakshinamukhi, i.e. it faces south, unlike the rest of the Jyotirlingas.
Yes.
And the Jyotirlingas are, of course, celebrated by devotees.
Yes.
As it is believed that Lord Shiva himself visited these places. Now, just talk us through the significance of Jyotirlingas and the stories surrounding them.
Look, the primary legend around the Jyotirlingas was, in primordial times. Lord Shiva appeared as the great pillar of light, the Jyotirling, and there arose a competition between Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma on who could reach the two ends of this great pillar of light, this great Jyotirling. Lord Brahma took the form of a bird to fly up, and Lord Vishnu took the form of a boar, Varaha, to dig down. And after a long time, Lord Vishnu came back and said the truth, that he couldn't find the end of the Jyotirling. Lord Brahma came back, and so it is said that he spoke an untruth, that he did find the end. The Jyotirling was, of course, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva appeared in his form and said that Lord Brahma has spoken an untruth, and for that reason Lord Brahma will not be worshipped anywhere, but Lord Vishnu will be worshipped everywhere, and as much as Lord Shiva is, and that is the story behind it. Now, we Shaivites believe that these Jyotirlingas are there at in a way some component of it is there at 12 locations where the Jyotirling temples are. So for us, it is they are among the greatest Lord Shiva temples, where we go and pray and be in touch with our Lord, seek His blessings, and seek to be in His great energy.
Okay, so now my final question to you, because inevitably, while certain people would see this as a perhaps retracing of India's journey as a civilizational state, or perhaps even a significant event towards taking that journey, the first steps on that journey, there are many who will say that the fact that the state has invested so much in rejuvenating Kashi or Kedarnath or even Ayodhya and now Mahakaleshwar tells you that the state is invested at some level in creating a saffron narrative that we are actually progressing on the road to a Hindu Rashtra, etc. How do you view this?
Firstly, this can be answered at two levels. One, as I mentioned earlier in your program itself, the only religion whose worship places are legally appropriated by the state is actually that of Hinduism. This is because of a British era law which was brought out in British times, because apparently we idol worshippers were evil or something like that. So our worship places had to be stamped out or controlled. Regrettably, those state of affairs continued even post independence. The government legally cannot take over a Muslim mosque. The Indian government cannot take over a Muslim mosque, a Christian church, a Sikh Gurudwara, but it can very easily and legally take over a Hindu temple. Hindu temple earnings fund large proportions of many state government budgets. Many of your viewers may not be aware of this, across many states. So Hindu pilgrims essentially fund government budgets. The government legally appropriates it, and they've been doing this for decades. This is not done on the worship places of Islam, Christianity or Sikhism in India. So actually over the last 75 years, the government has already appropriated billions of dollars worth of the money of Hindu devotees. They are only investing a small proportion of that back finally after so many years. So this is not a largesse of the government in any way. I would suggest this is only the government giving back a very small proportion, both the central and the state governments, giving back a very small proportion of what they've already appropriated over the last 75 years. That's the first point. Second point, we just saw the coronation in the UK as well. You would have read the coronation has not happened, but we saw the ascension of the new king. You would have seen one of the descriptions of the royal family there are defenders of the faith. Which faith? The Protestant faith. That does not make the UK any less secular. Anglican, the Anglican Protestant state. And in India, we are not professing, and the state does not profess any state. So I would submit that this is actually a wrong accusation to throw. India is actually in legal terms among the most secular states in the world actually, and in many ways deeply unfair against what are called pagan traditions or ancient idol worshipping traditions. And as I just mentioned, the small amount of investments that's taking place in temples is a very, very tiny repayment of money that has already been appropriated by many state governments and national governments over the last 75 years only from Hindu temples, not from the worship places of any other religions.
It's a very interesting, obviously, point of view. My final question before I let you go, because we've been having a fascinating conversation. How do you see the evolution of the Mahakaleshwar, the Kedarnath, Ayodhya, Kashi, sort of, let's call them a complex, so to speak, of immense mythological, spiritual, scientific enterprise? How do you see this evolve? Unfortunately, we do things with great fanfare, but we don't continue, and therefore things sort of fall by the wayside, and things are not well maintained, etc.
Rahul, I agree with you that there are times when we Indians ourselves do not take as much care of our traditions and of our joint heritage as we should. This is unfortunate, and I would request all my fellow Lord Shiva devotees, and indeed actually all Indians who visit these temples, many of which are being revived, the great parisars are being expanded. We must treat it with care and devotion. If we I was very saddened when I had gone to Uttarakhand recently, and I saw on the way people had thrown plastic wrappers, etc. When you're going to Kedarnath ji, you shouldn't be doing things like that. This is in a way showing disrespect to our great gods and goddesses. It's not only the temple that is holy, even the paths, even the roads up to the temple are holy. We must maintain cleanliness. We must take care of our if our heritage is being revived, then in many ways it's our responsibility to make sure that it remains clean and well maintained. And this is a request I would humbly like to make to all my fellow Indians. Of course, please do visit and pray at these temples. Rahul, I should tell you, my family is originally from Kashi, my father's family. The Kashi Vishwanath ji normally used to get 4 or 5 lakh devotees earlier, only during the Mahashivratri day. Now, I was, one of my cousins is in the temple trustee board. He was telling me that they get 4 to 5 lakh devotees every day. Wow. Can you imagine that? That is what the expansion has done. There are so many people from across the country coming together. But the point is, we must maintain this. We must make sure that the precincts remain clean. We must speak to others who may be dirtying it, that look, this is our heritage, it's our collective heritage, it's our devotion to our gods and goddesses, it's our, in a way, our compact with our ancestors, that they protected our heritage and passed it back to us. We must make sure we pass it onwards to our children with even greater care and maintenance.
Well, think of ourselves as caretakers of India's civilizational treasures. Thank you very much, Amish Tripathi, for speaking to Times Now, speaking to me on this auspicious day. Thank you very much.
After Shinde faction of Shiv Sena got its name Balasaheb Zanchi Shiv Sena yesterday, Election Commission of India allotted the two swords and shield symbol to the party. In the Gyanvapi mosque case, the Varanasi court has deferred the order on Hindu side's plea seeking carbon dating of purported Shivling to October 14. MOS Education writes to Union Home Minister Amit Shah over violence in West Bengal. Dr. Subhas Sarkar alleged appeasement towards one community by Mamata government for electoral gains. During the funeral service of Samajwadi Party founder Mulayam Singh Yadav at Saifai in Etawah, chants of Netaji Amar Rahe reverberated as supporters gathered in huge numbers to catch a last glimpse of their leader. Supreme Court issued notice to ED on Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain's plea against transfer of case to new judge, allowed agency's petition to transfer his case to another judge. Chief Justice of India UU Lalit named Justice D.Y. Chandrachud as his successor. UU Lalit will retire on November 8 this year.
The most pressing issues, the most informed minds, free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shivchakkar.
आपको सब फिल्म स्टार ही चाहिए मथुरा में।
नहीं हेममान
कन्हैया जी ने भक्त चाहिए कि कल राखी सावंत का he will also become. सांसद बनना चाहेंगे उसको तो आप बनने नहीं देंगे। आप दिमाग में सबको ऐसा डाल के रखेंगे फिल्म स्टार ही बनेगा। आपको सब फिल्म स्टार ही चाहिए मथुरा में।
नहीं हेममान
कन्हैया जी ने भक्त चाहिए कि कल राखी सावंत का he will also become. बहुत अच्छी बात है।
आपका क्या विचार है इस बार? आप
मेरा विचार क्या मैं बताऊं? मेरा विचार भगवान के ऊपर है। लॉर्ड कृष्णा विल डू इट।
To the NewsHour, I'm Madhvas Gopal Krishna. Ladies and gentlemen, the city of Ujjain was immersed in Shiv Bhakti today. The Mahakal has got a new Mahalok. The 900-meter length corridor built at a cost of 850 crore rupees has around 108 aesthetically ornate pillars made of intricately carved sandstones. With Jai Mahakal reverberating all around, the Prime Minister unveiled the 15-foot high Kalava Shivling after offering prayers at the Mahakal Lok. Prime Minister Modi, attired in traditional dhoti and gamcha, performed meditation while holding a string of prayer beads and a bay leaf. The PM wrote that in order to reach the heights of success, it's necessary that the nation touches its cultural heights and stands proudly with its identity. Listen in.
भाइयों और बहनों, किसी राष्ट्र का सांस्कृतिक वैभव इतना विशाल तभी होता है जब उसकी सफलता का परचम विश्व पटल पर लहरा रहा होता है। और सफलता के शिखर तक पहुंचने के लिए भी ये जरूरी है कि राष्ट्र अपने सांस्कृतिक उत्कर्ष को छुए, अपनी पहचान के साथ गौरव से सर उठा करके खड़ा हो जाए। इसलिए आजादी के अमृत काल में भारत ने गुलामी की मानसिकता से मुक्ति और अपनी विरासत पर गर्व जैसे पंच प्राण का आह्वान किया है।
This project, after completion, will expand the temple complex area to 47 acres, which includes 17 hectares of the Rudrasagar Lake. The Mahakaleshwar temple houses one of the 12 Jyotirlingas considered the most sacred of Lord Shiva's shrines here in India. The Prime Minister has asserted that with innovation comes renovation of Bharat's identity. Listen in.
उज्जैन जैसे हमारे स्थान खगोल विज्ञान, एस्ट्रोनॉमी से जुड़े शोधों के शीर्ष केंद्र रहे हैं। आज नया भारत जब अपने प्राचीन मूल्यों के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है, तो आस्था के साथ साथ विज्ञान और शोध की परंपराओं को भी पुनर्जीवित कर रहा है। ये न भूले, जहां इनोवेशन है वहीं पर रिनोवेशन भी है। हमने गुलामी के कालखंड में जो खोया, आज भारत उसे रिनोवेट कर रहा है। अपने गौरव की, अपने वैभव की पुनर्स्थापना हो रही है।
Now, Ujjain Kalyan is not the only initiative taken by the Modi Sarkar. From Kashi Vishwanath corridor to the Kedarnath temple restoration to revamping Somnath temple to the construction of a Bhavya Ram temple, the Modi Sarkar is on a mission to renovate symbols of Hindu Astha. And that brings me to the legitimate question that we're asking this evening. Is the Amrit Kal for Hindu Astha here?
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And while there is politics around this entire issue, for the moment at least in the first half of the show, we're going to focus around the significance of today's development and how this is a very, very important moment. To talk about that, I have with me Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author. Bhavya Roy is with me, she's an author as well. Shantanu Gupta also joins us, an author. Ratan Sharda, author, is with us. Rahul Ishwar is an activist who is with us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, I'm going to begin the discussion by asking you, and this is not really a debate in that sense, but more a discussion as to the significance of today. The Prime Minister talks about reclaiming India's civilizational glory, its cultural importance, and today's development and today's inauguration is very, very significant from that point of view, because this completely changes the way we look at some of our most important places of worship.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists. It indeed is a momentous day, no doubt about it, and the Mahakal Lok corridor, as it is called, doubtless is a beautiful addition to our civilizational heritage. It will enhance pilgrim comfort, increase tourist footfall, heighten the aesthetics of the entire experience of visiting what is one of the holiest places for a Hindu, a temple that is a keeper of one of the 12 sacred Jyotirlingas. I know I would be pilloried for saying all this, and yes, you may say that I as a Darwinian atheist have no right to comment on what is a Hindu celebration, but I assert that this is not just a religious issue, it is a civilizational issue. This same temple was demolished by the Islamic barbarian Iltutmish, according to historian Mehendale. He took the Jyotirlinga back to Delhi and broke it and scattered it on the steps of a mosque so that Muslims could trod on it. Imagine one of the most sacred possessions of a people meeting this fate. To me, Madhav, the mark of a civilization is this unquenchable thirst of man to demand justice for his ancestors, to correct a historical wrong. For that exemplifies a continuity, an idea, a memory that can never be erased, that is worth fighting for and preserving. It makes justice greater than the sum of its parts, and that is why a civilization is not fleeting like an empire to demand justice for a people who are dead for hundreds of years. It is almost as though you can feel their pain, their suffering, their destruction that has transcended the limits of body and time, and that is why history is a medicine, why catharsis is a cure. And today, when I see Hindus wishing to reclaim Kashi or Mathura or rejuvenating Mahakaleshwar, I see this as a catharsis, as a deliverance of justice to my ancestors who are wronged. This concept of striving to correct historical injustice is vital, Rahul. Now just, Madhav, just give me 30 seconds, it's very important. Second issue. Hindus must not feel grateful or obliged to the state for revitalizing Mahakaleshwar. It is just a fraction of their money coming back to them. This temple, its revenue, its land rent and evaluation, like 113,000 temples before it, is under state control through the Mahakaleshwar Mandir Act 1982. Last year, this temple earned as much as 81 crores. It could have earned 5 times that amount had the temple government evaluation of temple land and property not been faulty like it is for thousands of temples. The government, Madhav, controls the temple revenue. It snatches with one hand, then gives with another, and Hindus feel happy. Real civilizational renaissance would come when state control of Hindu temple ends. But does any government, including this one, have the guts to relinquish control?
Well, very, very important point that you've raised as far as temple control is concerned. But for the moment, and we will discuss that issue in the course of this discussion. But Bhavna Roy, I want to come to you on a very important point that was touched upon by both the Prime Minister and even, of course, to some extent by Dr. Ranganathan when they refer to Ujjain itself and its own importance. And each of these temples where we've seen, huge developmental projects take place to make, not just the pilgrimage easier, but also, of course, provide very basic facilities, many of which people would say that of centers of ancient learning such as Ujjain should have been done years ago, if not decades ago.
Daylight Durustai. I so agreed and resonated with Mr. Anand's statement. He said history is medicine. I would say history can be medicine. It can also be poisoned very often. It is so thrilling. It is so thrilling, civilizationally thrilling. This moment. At one end, it's about bhakti, it's astha. At another end, it is a beautiful confluence of devotion and science. Ujjain is an ancient city that at one time was the home of the zero meridian. It was the reference point for calculation of time. Today it's a brass strip in Greenwich, the Royal Observatory. But it was Ujjain for a Hindu Panchang. It is so to this day. Our lunar solar calendar uses Ujjain as the zero meridian to this day. And as compared to the popular Gregorian calendar as well as the Islamic calendar, our lunar solar calendar is to this day the most precise calendar on the planet.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, I want to take that question across to Dr. Ratan Sharda as well. Dr. Ratan Sharda, we have seen how the Prime Minister has been to Somnath. We've seen the Kashi corridor redevelopment. We've seen the Kedarnath redevelopment, and now Ujjain. At least of the 12 Jyotirlingas, 4 we've seen such mega developmental projects. What is it that you would look forward to in coming days? Because the Prime Minister himself also referred to several of those important shrines through the course of his speech, which I'm sure you would have heard. He refers to Rameshwaram, refers to several of the important places of worship, and also about the need for some kind of a cultural revival. He says that the spiritual revival of a country is very, very important for it to achieve the heights that it can.
See, I will give you one example how things have changed. This is the change, this is the renaissance that Swami Vivekananda visioned. This is the renaissance that Maharishi Aurobindo envisioned. This is the renaissance that we all expected when Somnath was resurrected. But see the difference, when Somnath was resurrected, we had the Prime Minister of India saying that don't do this, it will revive Hindu, Hindu revivalism, because he thought, so if a good Muslim can be, a religious Muslim is good, a religious Christian is good, a religious Parsi is good, but religious Hindus, no. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad paid a very heavy price when he died. Sardar Patel was asked not to go for his funeral. That is the kind of culture we had at this time, where we negated our roots, we negated our civilization, we negated every plus point of a civilization which has refused to die despite all the invasions. So we have all the great civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greek, all died, but India did not die, Bharat did not die, because we have deep roots. We refused to give up resistance. We kept on fighting to keep our dharma alive. That is the symbol that Ujjain today is. Do we know? I can bet that majority of viewers don't know that Ujjain is the intersection point of zero meridian that is mentioned in Surya Siddhant 4 BC with Tropic of Cancer. That is why it is called Nabhi of the globe. All our calculations came from Ujjaini. That is why the Jyotirling here is called Mahakal. That is the Lord of the time. That calculation, the mastery we had over time calculation is the proof that for us spirituality and science interacted very well. They were not separated. We were not afraid of science. We in fact embraced science. So I generally say that our point of view depends on the standpoint. So when we sit on the Greenwich zero meridian, we look at India from the Western perspective. That's what Nehruvians did. And when we look at India sitting on the zero meridian of Ujjain, we look at India, its glorious past, its glorious knowledge system, its wonderful spirituality, the sense of oneness. When Narendra Modi ji talked about these various places of worship and tirtha, we know that our spiritual integration, our geographical integration of Bharat as one country was actually nurtured by these tirtha stans. So somebody from Rameshwaram would have to go to take the water to go to Kashi Vishwanath. Somebody had to visit Kashi Vishwanath, carry the water of Ganges to Rameshwaram. So this strength we have. So somebody going from Somnath right up to Guwahati to Jyot Shakti Peeth, this strength has to be revived. This is our lifeblood. This is where India will stand. We are the only country where after 75 years we have people debating what are we.
Right.
Are we a nation born in 1947 or a nation with 10,000 years of documented history? It may be more.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, Rahul Ishwar, I just want to take off from that point of view of, our spiritual centers, which the Prime Minister referred to. And it's very important. The Prime Minister referred to not just Hindu centers, he referred to Sikh shrines such as Hemkut Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. We know the Prime Minister has been to Shravana Belagola. So he's really talking about the spiritual tradition of this country beyond any one system of belief. And that is very, very important because these are the very basic building blocks of our values, the way we live our life and our culture.
And regarding India and Indian culture, I believe some of the best lines are by Muhammad Iqbal when he says, "Yunan o misar Roma, sab mit gaye jahan se, ab tak magar hai baki, naam aur nishan hamara. कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिट्टी नहीं हमारी सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे ज़मान हमारा." Echoing what Ratan Shalda ji said, the Greeks, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, they have all perished. But India as a civilizational force, as a culture, as a tradition, have survived the test of time. And that is the greatness of India. That's what makes India Vishwaguru. And as Madhavji rightly pointed out, PM is in an all-encompassing attitude spoke about the different nuances of culture. About the great Jain culture. Earlier he was inspiring the Buddhist circuit, and this is what the great Hindu tradition or Ashabharata Sanskriti is all about. So unless we remember our history and heritage, we are doomed to fail. And yes, we had a Nehruvian system in which even Rajendra Prasad ji was prohibited from going to the Somnath temple earlier, or even when Sri K.M. Munshi and Sardar Patel wanted to rejuvenate the temple, the Nehru ji opposed, but it was Mahatma Gandhi's centrist point which made it possible. So we want to have that cultural renaissance, ethical renaissance, the dharmic renaissance, which will revitalize not only spirituality, culture, learning, science, economics too. See, this will all facilitate proper footfall. It will increase tourism, spiritual tourism, religious tourism, cultural tourism, and you will have a sense of belonging. Unfortunately, with the Macaulay's education or later the pseudo-secular education, there is not a sense of belonging to the majority community and major of Indians. That sense of belonging to our culture, taking a pride in our culture should be there. And please remember, a totally Islamic nation, Egypt, some months back even were showcasing their pharaohs and showcasing their pyramids, because that is their root. They cannot forget their roots, whichever religion you belong to. So beyond religion, we have a civilizational identity, we have a cultural identity, we have history and heritage with us, and it is a duty bound of every Indian beyond religion to celebrate that great culture. And for example, take the case of Indonesia, the largest Muslim nation. They even celebrate Ram. They have Garuda Indonesia. In India it will be called communal. They have Bang Ganesha. In India it will be called communal. They have Ganapati in their currency note. In India it will be branded communal. So you have to celebrate the civilizational aspect. Unless we remember our history and heritage, our sense of identity would not be there.
Well, absolutely. Civilization, history, identity and culture all are inextricably linked. Dr. Ranganathan, I see your hand going up, but I quickly want to bring in Shantanu Gupta. Because Shantanu, many would see this as, a part of a long series of, announcements by the government. We've seen, for instance, the Char Dham announcement, the government wanting to link all of these very important shrines, the holiest perhaps in the Hindu faith, by road. We've seen various other projects that have been announced in the past. So it's not just one standalone project. There are several such projects that have been put into motion, and perhaps we are just seeing the results of one of them today.
And there are many completions also, Madhav, that we have seen. We have seen how Kedarnath is rejuvenated. We have seen how Kashi corridor, Ayodhya, what's happening. We know the Mathura corridor because we live very near to that. Mathura corridor work is there. And today we have seen the Mahakal Ujjain corridor, right? And I will extend what Ratanji was saying. Just a couple of years back, yoga was communal in India when Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the same Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, tried to implement yoga as a mandatory practice in all the government schools. It was called, no, yoga is communal. Now more than 200 countries are celebrating yoga. So I think the soft power of India, within India and outside India, is being pressed upon, which is the right point. And just a point to Rahul spoke very amazing, Rahul Ishwar, but again, please don't quote Muhammad Iqbal today. I think those lines, if you extend those lines, you'll find the real meaning of those lines. He was one of the closest eyed of Muhammad Jinnah. So I think don't spoil the happiness in this amazing movement, Mahakal movement, by quoting Muhammad Iqbal.
It's okay, it's okay. We can find a reason to celebrate the pluralism. I think it's in that context that Rahul Ishwar was talking about. But yes, Dr. Ranganathan, you want to come in?
No, very quickly, 2 points, Rahul. Sorry, Madhav. One is that, Rahul is a very good friend of mine. Everyone knows it. But sometimes, I hope he doesn't mind my saying so, he behaves like the other Rahul. I don't mean Rahul Shiv Shankar, I mean Rahul Gandhi. I'm glad you clarified as Shantanu absolutely said, today of all days, he is quoting that communal bigot, Allama Iqbal, who said, I confess to be a pan-Islamist and my job is to remove idol worship from this world, to purge infidelity from the world, and today is quoting Allama Iqbal. Please don't do that. Number two, I might be pilloried for this, but can I please say this? Of course, and I've already said, this is a beautiful day, a beautiful occasion, but in one sense, it is also a day of, politicians saying, let them have cake. Let Hindus be happy with this. I ask you a simple question. What would a billion Hindus be happy with? Being thrown 300 crores and this wonderful corridor, or being given the key to the control of their own 113,000 temples, by which they can earn lakhs of crores of money, by which they can make tens of thousands of educational institutions, schools, colleges, more Hindu temples. Did you know last year High Court of Madras was told that there are 12,000 temples in Tamil Nadu that do not have enough money to even conduct one day's puja. This is happening in this land of Hindus. So this is, again, I know it is a happy occasion, I don't want to spoil it and come out like a contrarian, but it is a fact. Why are exclusively only Hindus places of worship being controlled by the government? And the government every now and then throws hundreds of crores towards Hindus, and Hindus feel all happy and elated, whereas they are losing out on lakhs of crores. Think.
Okay, important point. Two very important points, and I'm going to allow Rahul Ishwar, since both the previous panelists referred to him and what he said earlier. Rahul Ishwar, 2 points. Your reference to Allama Iqbal and also the fact that temples need to be free. That's something that you have also campaigned about in the past. Your response.
First of all, I know I agree with the sentiments of Shantanuji and Anandji. Anandji knows I am a huge fan of him. So I would not even tell about the first point. But the second point he raised is very important. Please remember, all the viewers who will listen to this, see, this is a real problem. See, let me be very honest in saying this. Kerala's communist government and Devasam board took money from Shabarimala to argue against the very Shabarimala and the Honorable Supreme Court. We have been facing that, and we have been left with, say, average lawyers, or maybe, somewhere around the middle lawyers. We couldn't afford a Harish Salve, not because Shabarimala didn't have money. Shabarimala had crores in its coffer. Well, that per year it is getting around 150 to 155 crore rupees. But the leftist government took the money from the Devasam board to argue against the very deity and the very institution they are supposed to safeguard. So this really happened. There is a very serious issue. The control of Hindu temples beyond the secular government coming back to the Hindu devotees and deities, an extremely important point. Otherwise, this is an institutional chain that we are in. Whether it is Guruvayur, whether it is Shabarimala, this is a very serious trouble that we are fighting. And unless that control is given back to Mukt Karo temples or free Hindu temples, whichever name you want to call it, and it was back in, especially in Kerala's context, back in 1812, that Colonel Munro, through a very cunning move, wanted to to so-called take over all the temples, because he understood temples were the centers of Hindu power, civilizational power. They were uniting against the British through temples. So he cunningly took in the name of maladministration. The similar thing is being followed even today in India.
Right.
The so-called secular government, because they want to control. That control should be given back to the devotee.
All right. Rahul has made a very important point. Just quickly getting a response from Ratan Sharda on this. Ratan Sharda, one of the BJP governments, at least in Karnataka, had announced earlier this year that they would in fact go ahead and implement this freeing the temple campaign that had in fact been raised by several activists, including Rahul Ishwar and others. But in terms of actual action on ground, we've not seen that actually materialize. I don't want to take away and sidetrack from today's larger debate, but this is certainly an issue that, since many of our panelists have raised an issue of concern, how do you see all of this finally panning out on ground? Because there are a number of legal and other hurdles also that will have to be cleared.
See, Madhav, I have been one of the earliest ones who has been speaking against the temple control of the government. But to my mind, I am quite sure, I am very calm about it. I will not use any bitter words. I am quite sure that before 2024 we will find the change. We will find some laws coming into place to give Hindus better control on temples. I am not saying free or what, I don't know. But I am very sure before 2024 we will see that change also. Let us be calm. Let us believe. Let us trust Modi, because he has done so many things for Hindu civilization which are not even supposed to be possible, and he has gone ahead and done it. So I am very sure this will also happen, because there are many things that need to be ironed out before that happens, and it will happen. So let us keep calm and not be bitter on this day. When you have seen, I am not happy because somebody threw some 100 crores. I am happy because Rennaisance started despite all the naysayers, despite all the bitter battles, despite all the bitter debates that keep on happening on Indian TV sets, whenever there is anything to do with Hindus, because doing something good for Hindus does not mean doing bad for any other religion. If I can be a good Muslim, I can be a good Christian, why can't be a good Hindu? As simple as that. So it is our right. Nobody is doing any favor, but this government took up the cudgel. Nobody else did it. This government did it. So at least we should know that they respect our sentiment, they understand our feelings.
Right. A lot being said, and I think that's very well articulated. In fact, let me bring Bhavna Roy into that debate. Bhavna, you're an author, and while many have said that just a few 100 crores being thrown is perhaps more symbolic than anything else, but as Ratan Sharda says, somebody has done it. Very famously, V.S. Naipaul had called India wounded civilization. There's a book to that effect, as you would very well know. Do you think that today there is some balm on those wounds?
Before I answer that question, Madhavji, I would like to hark back to the reference to Muhammad Iqbal, appropriately objected to by everybody when Rahulji mentioned. Beautiful though that those lines are, let me segue into Meghdut of Kalidasji from the 5th century AD, who, Kalidasji talks about this beautiful maid, which is the Doot, to the Yaksha, the pining Yaksha, sitting on a mountain peak. And he uses this cloud to carry his longing and his love to his lover seated in the city of Alaka. And as the cloud travels through the terrain of Bharatvash, he describes the various cities and the features of nature that he observes, and the most beautiful description of the cloud was of the city of Ujjain, Avanti. We have other references in our literature to the beautiful city of Ujjain. Coming back to your question about wounds, they heal. It's a time of healing, as Ratan Sharda ji said. It's a time of celebration. Let's celebrate this moment.
Well, it's a time of celebration, certainly, and of course, very, very important. Let me bring in Shantanu Gupta on this. Where do you stand, Shantanu Gupta? Many saying that you heard Ratan Sharda as well as Anand Raghunathan. The view that has been expressed by some is that this is just more symbolic. There are much larger and very fundamental reforms that are required and changes that are required for Hindu faith and Hindus to actually realize their maximum potential. Where do you stand, Shantanu?
No, I'm saying I think it'll be a very dishonest statement that whatever happened in last 8 years is just symbolic. I think to a student of politics like me, I always thought 370 will be a PhD topic. Removing 370 will be a PhD topic in TV debate, but we see the truth today. I always saw CAA, Ayodhya, International Yoga Day, Triple Talaq will be all debate topic, Nibandh topic, and we'll be all done with it. I think, and I see the impatience in Anandji, and I think that impatience is there because finally we realize there is a government which can do something about it. And I'm saying things are happening in Uttarakhand. Almost 51 temples are freed. Now it's a topic. 10 years back, a normal person didn't know even the topic like UCC, 370, temple control. Now it's a part of public debate, and I'm sure everyone, including Anandji, knows the intricacies involved. And I think within a couple of years we'll see movement towards that also. I'm hopeful.
All right, you're hopeful that we will be seeing movement towards that. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us on debate number 1. Certainly a very, very momentous time at the moment. This is certainly, of course, a moment that the whole country's eyes really are on at the moment. And in fact, at the moment, we will, in fact, all right, let me just quickly, in fact, bring in Rahul Ishwar on this point. Rahul Ishwar, where are you seeing these moves of the government? We saw the Prime Minister's speech today. What exactly are you hoping for in terms of further reforms? Of course, temple and control of temples is something that we have spoken about. Where are you hopeful that things will now pan out, and what are the reforms that you are looking forward to?
Centers of culture, civilization too. So they wanted to control the temples and destroy because they know it will wound the civilization. It will hurt the people and it will destroy the entire spiritual paradigm that we have. So hopefully there will be more growth in this area. We will see more closer to rejuvenation of cultural spaces. And like Anandji, I am also a bit impatient, but I respect Shantanu-ji's work. Yes, we are moving towards that. Nobody can deny that. Even in Uttarakhand, we saw protests and the government also accepting the position. But please remember, there are many spaces where there are strongly anti-Hindu parties in the name of secularism is ruling it. We were all jailed for many weeks altogether because we were protesting for our rights under Article 25. So there are issues in many other spaces, especially including in South India, where Tamil Nadu is a land of temples. Temples are still under the government shackles. And even in a place called Tamil Nadu, where their official state emblem is a temple, the temples are still under the atheistic control in the name of progressivism. So we have to move structurally too. Yes, cultural, civilizational, artistic, spiritual revival is absolutely needed. It will give us momentum. But to the structural, policy-wise change too, there is a long section of devotees who are longing for it. And we all know, beyond politics, I like Modi ji, but beyond politics, we all know if there is a person who can deliver, that is Modi ji. Especially with his deep thought and vision, I hope that will be materialized in the coming years.
All right, Rahul Ishwar, Ratan Sharda, Shantanu Gupta, Bhavna Roy and Dr. Anand Ranganathan, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening and expressing very candidly your views on an issue that is very significant, and certainly, of course, with the Prime Minister's presence there showing the indication of which way this government is headed. And also, of course, very interestingly, some of the secular parties that you referred to, Rahul, are today actually claiming credit for this very project, and that shows the importance perhaps that this very moment has, not just in terms of our spiritual traditions and cultural traditions, but also how far the political goalposts have really shifted as far as this country is concerned. And that's going to be the next debate that we are going to be having in just a few minutes. Now, credit war has broken out as Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the first phase of the Grand Mahakal Corridor. The Congress claimed that the Mahakal Corridor development plan was envisaged under former Chief Minister Kamal Nath's regime in 2019, and that it was the then Congress government which initiated the project, not the BJP. The Congress says that former Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Kamal Nath had allocated 300 crore rupees for the project, and that the details of the project were even put before the temple priests and then cabinet members. A panel of 3 ministers was also formed for its implementation, but the BJP seems to be taking all credit for it. Now, former Chief Minister Kamal Nath says that everything's on record. The BJP is asking, where are the records? The BJP has taken exception to the Congress party's claims and said that they could have at least spared Bholenath from this politics. The BJP has countered Congress's claim and said that the proposal for the Mahakal development project was given in 2017 itself. The detailed project report was prepared within 1 year in 2018 under Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan's regime. Tenders were invited the very same year, but it was the Congress government that then put the project on the back burner when it came into power. Listen in to the war of words.
आस्थाओं को इवेंट में कैसे बदला जाए यह सीखना हो तो शिवराज सरकार से सीखना चाहिए। दस्तावेज साक्षी हैं कि बाबा महाकाल जो हमारे ज्योतिर्लिंगों में शामिल हैं, उनके मंदिर के पुनरुद्धार का नींव पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री माननीय कमलनाथ जी ने रखी थी। न केवल उसके लिए 300 करोड़ रुपयों का आवंटन किया, बल्कि उसकी टेंडरिंग प्रक्रिया भी हो गई थी।
15 महीने में एक काम नहीं किया था। महाकाल लोक तो बड़ी बात है, और करते तो करा हुआ दिखाते। चलो ये छोड़ दो, आप कोई दिखा दें करा हुआ। सिर्फ झूठ बोला, लिखित में झूठ बोला कांग्रेस ने। किसानों के साथ 10 दिन में 2 लाख एक का नहीं किया, नौजवान को 4,000 महीना, 15 महीने में 60,000 एक को नहीं दिया। ऐसी महाकाल लोक का इनको तारीफ करना आता ही नहीं किसी की। एक ऐसा काम हो रहा है जिसमें पूरा प्रदेश पलक पावड़े बिछा के प्रधानमंत्री का अगवानी करना चाहता है।
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 2 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Let's take this across to our guest. Joining us is Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP. With us also is Dr. Anand Ragnathan, author. Dushan Nagar, political analyst, is with us, as is Dr. Suman C. Raman, political analyst. Let me start with you, Dr. Suman C. Raman. You know, at the end of the day, politics is par for course in any field, perhaps where politicians are involved. But many would say that perhaps the Mahakal temple could have been spared of the political controversy and the credit war that we're currently seeing. Suman C. Raman.
Well, Madhav, Mr. Kamalnath did not say anything to try and take the entire credit away. He only said that in 2019, when he was in power, his government did some activities related to the project. They had meetings with the priests and to get the plan sanctioned, and also that they've constituted a 3-tier committee to work on the project. Now that is the sum total of what Mr. Kamalnath said. As far as I can see, he did not say that this entire project is only because of Congress party or only because of him. So I don't understand where this issue of politicization of this actually arises. Today is a proud day for all Indians, and one must congratulate the Prime Minister for having declared open the corridor. And I think that it's very important that we need to look beyond politics. I honestly don't think Kamalnath meant that he is to be the sole, the entire credit for the project should go to him. He said that when he was in power, these things happened, and he says that these things are on record. So I think that if the BJP feels that Kamalnath's government did not do anything or actively,
May I just read out for your benefit, sir? May I read out for your benefit what was stated by Shobha Ojha of the Congress on the 11th of October.
Yeah.
Now, she has said that in a meeting convened in Mantralaya under the chairmanship of Chief Minister Kamalnath in August 2019, 300 crore for Mahakal temple development was sanctioned. Details of this plan were placed before priests and members of the cabinet. Development and construction of front yard and expansion of Nandi Hall, Mahakal theme park, corridor, lawn parking was proposed in the first phase. In the second phase, the Maharaj Dhwaja, etc. were in fact proposed. Various other details of the amenities are there. Essentially what she's saying is that this all began in August 2019. What else is she saying?
No, Madhav, just one thing. Mr. Narottam Mishra is on record saying that the actual master plan was laid or the project was conceived in Mr. Shivraj Chauhan's time in 2017. Now, these are government records. Did Mr. Kamalnath actually hold these meetings? These are not secret meetings. There have been meetings held with the board of the Mahakal temple. These are meetings held with ministerial colleagues, and I'm sure that there would be government records of all these files. Was this amount sanctioned? Now there is a dispute. The BJP says that this amount of 350 crore was sanctioned during Mr. Shivraj Chauhan's tenure. Now the Congress is claiming that the first phase budget was sanctioned by them. All of this is government data. Why not put it out instead of
let me get the BJP on this
TV?
now.
So
Sanju Verma, who gets the credit for sanctioning this project? Is it Mr. Kamalnath or Mr. Chauhan?
Madhav, I remember my colleague Shehzad saying the full form of INC is I need corruption. Well, I think the new name of INC should be I need credit. इतने सारे credit जीवी हैं कांग्रेस में. One thing which Suman C. Raman rightly said is that everything is publicly documented. So if everything is publicly documented, my limited point is this. Kamal Nath said that there was a 3-member committee which was formed to ensure that the Mahakal corridor is brought to fruition. I want to ask Mr. Sumant-C Raman, can you name those 3 committee members? Because he said, Kamal Nath said these were 3 senior cabinet ministers. Let me finish. Let me finish. Madhav, I don't understand what kind of a debate is this.
Okay, let her finish. Let her finish. Yes. Dr. Raman, she didn't heckle you or disturb you. Let her make a point. Yeah.
Yes. Who are these 3 August cabinet members of the erstwhile Kamal Nath cabinet who were actually, given the task of negotiating for the project and ensuring that it is brought to fruition? Forget what Shivraj Singh Chauhan said or Narottam Mishra, the Home Minister of Madhya Pradesh, said. They said it was conceived and operationalized somewhere in 2016-17 when Kamal Nath, took over charge as Chief Minister in 2018. For 15 months he sat on it. It was the BJP-led Shivraj Singh Chauhan government again in 2020 after coming back to power again that the entire project was restored. I will just give you a very small example of why the Congress is lying. Unless 90% of the acquisition of land of any project is complete, you cannot have a detailed project report as in a DPR done. Anyone who has a basic idea of how land acquisition and businesses work knows
right.
it. I want to ask Mr. Kamal Nath, if you indeed acquired 90% of the land, can you give us details of the tendering process? Can you give us details of the DPR, the detailed project report which was prepared? The point is there was no land acquisition, there was no tendering, there was no DPR, there was no committee that was formed. And I will go so far as saying, Mother, that this is a repeat which happens with the opposition every time a big project is launched.
Right.
I remember when Purvanchal Expressway was, inaugurated by the Prime Minister last year.
Okay.
You had the Samajwadi Party and the Congress saying, "Arey, ye to hamara idea tha." I remember when in 2017 GST was launched, they said, "Arey, ye to hamara idea tha."
Well, GST was in the works. I don't think that's a fair comparison to make. Let's quickly bring. Okay. You made your point. You made your point. Let me bring in Sumant-C Raman to the questions that you've asked. If there was a DPR, if there were tendering process, Sumant-C Raman, where are the documents to actually prove that? That's a direct question coming in from Sanju Verma. Please respond to that particular point.
No, Madhav, Mr. Kamal Nath specifically is on record saying that the documents and the records will speak for themselves. To the best of my knowledge.
So where do you stand? What do the documents say? That's the question we are asking you.
So why not put out those documents? Why not put out the documents?
Okay, you've not perused the documents. You've not perused the documents. Let me bring in Dushan Nagar.
Madam, my simple point is, do you want the opposition to produce government documents, but the government which has them will not put it out in public domain?
If you are claiming credit, sir.
The opposition is making allegations, so you have to produce the documents, Sumant-C Raman. You can't have
it's very simple.
You can't have
very simple. It's very simple. It's very simple. Very
simple. The responsibility is now on your shoulders.
Put out the meeting. Put out the meeting. How can it be? These are government records. Where will Kamal Nath go for them?
Embarrassing yourself on national television.
Very simple. There are.
All right. Let me quickly. All right. Let me quickly bring in other panelists as well who probably studied this issue. And let me bring in Dushan Nagar. Dushan Nagar, इस तरह की क्रेडिट वॉर में एंगेज करते हैं तो कुछ ठोस सबूत भी होने चाहिए कि आखिरकार कौन सी सरकार थी जिसने इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को इंप्लीमेंट करने में सबसे ज्यादा पुश किया, क्योंकि आरोप बीजेपी का यह है कि कमलनाथ जी की सरकार के दौरान इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को कोल्ड स्टोरेज में डाला गया था। यह उनका आरोप है, क्या कहेंगे?
बिल्कुल देखिए, उज्जैन के महाकाल का इतिहास बहुत पुराना है। अनेक राजा, अनेक नेता हुए, एक से एक बड़े हुए जिन्होंने इसका समय समय पे निर्माण कराया, पुनर्निर्माण कराया, भव्यीकरण कराया। तो इसका कोई एक व्यक्ति क्रेडिट अगर लेना चाहता है तो वो सर्वदा अनुचित है।
सर, हम महाकाल कॉरिडोर की बात कर रहे हैं, हम प्राचीन काल की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम इस प्रोजेक्ट की बात कर रहे हैं जिसका आज उद्घाटन हुआ है। आप प्राचीन कालों में क्यों जा रहे हैं? इतने इतिहास में क्यों जा रहे हैं आप?
आपको बताना पड़ेगा ना। ये जो
सर इतिहास सब जानते हैं, हम इस करंट क्रेडिट वॉर की फाइट के बारे में बात करें दुष्यंत नागर, प्लीज इस मामले पे, इस मुद्दे पर बात करें।
इतिहास को नहीं जानते और जो प्रधानमंत्री जी का कार्य है तो उसको नहीं कर रहे, जाके कहां छुपते हैं, कभी जाके छुप जाते हैं वॉर मेमोरियल के पीछे, कभी किसी प्रोजेक्ट के पीछे।
दुष्यंत जी प्लीज, दुष्यंत जी मेरा आपसे अनुरोध है, वन सेकंड संजू वर्मा, वन सेकंड, लेट मी जस्ट आस्क दुष्यंत नागर सिंपल क्वेश्चन। दुष्यंत नागर, आज की कंट्रोवर्सी देखिए, क्योंकि ये बहुत स्पेसिफिक इशू के बारे में हम आज डिबेट कर रहे हैं और ये क्रेडिट वॉर है जो महाकाल कॉरिडोर को लेकर चल रहा है मध्य प्रदेश में। इस पे आपके पास क्या सबूत है या क्या आप कहना चाहेंगे कि क्यों कमलनाथ सरकार ने इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को इंप्लीमेंट किया? यहां पे सुमन सिंह रामन कह रहे हैं रिकॉर्ड देखें, संजू वर्मा कह रही है 2017 में इस प्रोजेक्ट को एग्जीक्यूट करने की सारी जो परमिशंस थी शिवराज सिंह चौहान सरकार ने दिया थे। आप इस पे क्या कहेंगे? आप कहां पे इस पे खड़े हैं? सिंपल सवाल है।
मैं तो ये कहना चाहता हूं, कमलनाथ जी ने श्रीलंका के अंदर सीता माता जी का मंदिर बनवाया, राम वन पथ गमन, वो पूरा प्रोजेक्ट श्री कमलनाथ जी ने अपने अल्पकाल में जितना उनका समय था उसको शुरू करवाया, और भगवान महाकाल कॉरिडोर के विषय में सारा विवरण, सारे तथ्य रखी दी। भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने कुछ नहीं किया।
ओके, क्विक रिस्पॉन्स फ्रॉम संजू वर्मा, देन आई गो अक्रॉस टू डॉक्टर रंगनाथन। क्विक रिस्पॉन्स फ्रॉम संजू वर्मा, क्विक रिस्पॉन्स प्लीज।
ओके दुष्यंत जी, आपकी बात सुन ली। You know, Madhav, I'm saying forget even what Shivraj Singh Chauhan said, forget what Narottam Mishra said. Let us believe at least people associated on the ground, and I was listening to your reporter when she was talking to the pujari outside the Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain, and he said not only 2016, the actually idea was conceived by Prime Minister Modi way back in 2014 after he took charge as Prime Minister and decided to make Ujjain one of the smart cities, and under the master plan of that smart cities, one of the things that was decided was that the Jyotirlinga in Ujjain, the only Jyotirlinga which faces towards the south, will be renovated on a big war footing, and this is only the first phase. You have 2 more phases of the project, whereby there will be a renovation of the Rudrasagar Lake,
all right.
Lake, and
I'm going to come back to you on that point that you've made as far as the renovation of the Jyotirlinga is concerned, but I want to bring in Dr. Ranganathan very quickly. Dr. Ranganathan, you were raising your hand and shaking your head very vigorously.
No, there are 3 issues. 1, that Kamalnath is right. 2, that Kamalnath is wrong. And 3, that both BJP and Congress are wrong. So on 1, if Kamalnath is right, well, you know, this won't be for the first time when the Congress proposes and BJP disposes. We've seen the history. Since GST, the bullet train, the huge flag, the flagpoles, the CAA, they are all essentially things that were complete. The parliament new building proposed by the Congress, finished by the BJP. So the BJP is really good at not only implementing its own ideas, which there might be many, but it even better at implementing and finishing Congress's ideas. Now, why should Congress be jealous about it? It's a Congress's thing. Now, 2, if Kamalnath is wrong, and I truly feel Kamalnath is partly wrong here, because as of what I have read, limited on this thing, it is indeed Shivraj Chauhan in 2017 when he, proposed this idea, and Kamalnath government came in. It is not that he abandoned it. It's just that perhaps he could not pursue it with the same zeal that the BJP government likes to pursue these religious matters. So I'm not disagreeing with what Kamalnath is saying, but if he is saying something, if Congress is alleging something, then it is incumbent upon Congress to give a little bit more proof. Right. If they cannot furnish those documents that they are saying are with the government, then at least a little bit more proof than just saying that it was our idea.
Well, yes.
Furnish the proof. And lastly, Madhav, just 10 seconds. ये कांग्रेस का आइडिया हो या बीजेपी का आइडिया हो, द फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज दिस इज बट आई रिपीट अ फ्रैक्शन ऑफ हिंदू मनी coming back to Hindus. Why are governments taking credit for something? They should be taking credit for looting the Hindus and controlling 113,000 Hindu temples when they shouldn't be.
Well, I think since both the panelists who are actually speaking for the Congress, they're not official spokespersons, of course, are a little lacking in research today. I think our research team has done a better job of digging up a very important point. And Sanju Verma, please listen to this report very closely. Just 3 or 4 sentences I want to read out. This is the Times of India report from the 1st of September 2019. Congress and BJP are at loggerheads over the development of the Mahakaleshwar temple complex area in Ujjain. BJP leaders, including the Ujjain MP, 2 MLAs and the city mayor, met Governor Lalji Tandon in Bhopal, complained that the Congress-led state government is not taking into confidence local elective representatives of Ujjain while charting out the Mahakaleshwar temple development plan. The BJP has also alleged that the ongoing proposed developments in temple area is being done with money received from the centre after Ujjain was shortlisted on the smart city list by the union government. That's in the memorandum that was given to the governor by the BJP that stated that the 1800 crore development plan for Ujjain was finalized. The city was listed by the union government among 100 smart cities in the country. So there was no complaint made about the credit stealing or that this was a project that was originally brought in by the BJP. The complaint was that the centre's funds are being misused. So somewhere there is a lack of consistency in the arguments of Mr. Shivraj Chauhan or his supporters in any case, at least.
Madhav, what is the date of this article?
This is dated the 1st of September 2019 when Mr. Kamal Nath was ostensibly in power.
This is dated 1st of September 2019. I would request you to read an article by Times of India dated 11th October 2022 and by Hindustan Times dated 2022 where the entire chronology is given. 2016 conceived, 2017 Shivraj Singh Chauhan sets rolling the process of acquisition of land, tendering and making the detailed project report called the DPR. 2018 Kamal Nath sits on it for 15 months. 2020 Shivraj Singh Chauhan government again kickstarts the project. So from conception to fruition without any ifs or buts, the fact is Narendra Modi government and the Shivraj Singh government in Madhya Pradesh deserves credit, and people who say politicians don't deserve credit, politicians deserve credit for ensuring that effective policy making on the ground finally translates into something concrete for taxpayers and for Hindus.
Okay.
If you are going to rubbish the Modi government when things are not working, you have to give credit when things are working. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
All right. Sumansi Raman wants to respond to you. His hand has been up for a while. Dr. Raman.
Madhav, first of all, that by quoting that article, you spectacularly shot yourself in the foot. If the project had been stalled during Mr. Kamal Nath's term, there was no reason for the BJP legislators and the others to go and meet the governor and say they are not being consulted.
Mr. Raman, before you complete your statement, I am not making a brief for any political party. I am questioning all the sides and I continue to remain impartial in this debate. You said that I am shooting myself in the foot. I only said that the BJP claims that Kamal Nath stalled the work.
You quoted that story.
So I quoted the story not to prove anything, sir. I am quoting the story to question the BJP. Nevertheless, please go ahead with your argument.
No, 1 second. But the story establishes beyond doubt that work continued during the period of Mr. Kamal Nath. Contrary to what Sanju Verma just said, that he sat on it for 15 months. Clearly, if he sat on it, where was the need for them to go and meet the governor and say that we are not being consulted in the ongoing work? So I think that there is some logic. If Mr. Kamal Nath is very clear in saying that 1 minute, I didn't interrupt you, that these meetings,
name the 3 cabinet ministers.
1 minute, that again you are wrong. It is not 3 ministers.
And were part of the committee that was set up by Kamal Nath.
1 minute.
To make the Mahakal temple corridor.
It was not 3 ministers committee. It was 1 minute. 1 minute. It was not 3 cabinet ministers. It was a 3-tier committee. 3-tier committee. 3-tier committee. 3-tier, not 3 cabinet ministers committee.
All right.
3-tier committee. 3-tier. She doesn't know.
All right. Let me come in and let's say that both parties, both the Congress and at least the Congress representative, political analyst and the BJP agree to disagree on this point. Anand Ragnathan.
Now, as I say, Rahul, it is. I'm so sorry, Madhav. My apologies. The fact of the matter is that on this day, which I've already said, it's a very beautiful day. It's a very beautiful day for our civilization, and it's not just a day of pride for the Hindus. It is a day of pride for all Indians. This is a civilizational issue. But at the same time, can the parties please hold back on taking credit, because this is, I repeat, unless or until they keep on controlling, both Congress and the BJP and any other party controlling 113,000 Hindu temples, there is no Hindu civilizational renaissance happening, period.
All right, very very important point. Let me bring in Dushyant Nagar on that. Dushyant Nagar, political parties को इस तरह की लड़ाई तब तक लड़नी नहीं चाहिए जब तक वो टेम्पल्स को पूरी तरह फ्री नहीं करते हैं. टेम्पल्स पे आखिर गवर्नमेंट कंट्रोल क्यों है? क्यों हिंदुओं को अपनी आस्था के ऊपर कंट्रोल नहीं दिया जाना चाहिए?
भैया, नेताओं को, राजनीतिक दलों को राजनीति करनी है, परफॉर्म तो करते नहीं है. आज आपने देखा भारत का फॉरेस्ट रिजर्व कितना घट गया है, उससे तो बात करनी नहीं है. रोजगार तो है नहीं, जाके फोटो खिंचाना है टेम्पल के ऊपर. हमारे मंदिरों के ऊपर राजनेताओं का और राजनीतिक दलों का कोई मतलब नहीं होना चाहिए.
लेकिन है सर,
राजनीति करनी है
सर. लेकिन सर, जहां विपक्ष की सरकार है वहां पे इस तरह की टेम्पल को फ्री करने की बात भी नहीं हो रही. हाँ, ये बात सही होगा कि बीजेपी के राज्यों में भी ये बात नहीं हुई है, लेकिन विपक्षी दल भी तो कहीं ना कहीं इस पूरे मामले में इक्वली गिल्टी हैं.
कोई नहीं करता. विपक्षी दल ईमानदार दल हैं, जन भावनाओं का ख्याल रखते हैं.
सर, तमिलनाडु में क्या हो रहा है?
प्राचीन परंपराओं का
तमिलनाडु में विपक्षी दल डीएमके रूलिंग कर रही है.
कमलनाथ जी ने कौन सा प्रचार किया? कमलनाथ जी ने कौन सा लाइव चलवाया? बताइए तो सही.
सर, एलडीएफ की सरकार केरला में नहीं है.
भाई साहब,
क्या कहेंगे दुष्यंत नागर?
मुख्यमंत्री,
ये केवल कांग्रेस की बात नहीं है दुष्यंत नागर. आज की डेट में सारे राजनीतिक दल इक्वली गिल्टी, इक्वली दोषी हैं. इसमें बीजेपी को भी फ्री पास नहीं मिलता, कांग्रेस को भी नहीं मिलता, ना लेफ्ट पार्टीज को मिलता है. डॉक्टर रंगनाथन ये सिंपल सी और सरल बात रख रहे हैं सामने.
बेंगलुरु में ले जाया गया विधायकों को. अब ये लोग ज्ञान देते हैं.
ऑल राइट
दुष्यंत जी, आप जानते हैं. दुष्यंत जी,
वन एट टाइम. दुष्यंत जी प्लीज, आप राजनीतिक मुद्दों और आध्यात्मिक मुद्दों को आप जोड़ रहे हैं. लेट मी क्विकली ब्रिंग इन डॉक्टर रंगनाथन. डॉक्टर रंगनाथन वांट्स टू काउंटर यू.
दुष्यंत जी, यहां तक एकदम ठीक है जो कह रहे हैं कि पॉलिटिशियंस कंट्रोल करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन यहां पे वो थोड़ा सा पार्शियल हो गए, बिकॉज वो कह रहे हैं कांग्रेस ऐसा नहीं करती. आपको पता होना चाहिए दुष्यंत जी, जो ओरिजिनल सुप्रीम कोर्ट राजस्थान में स्टेट कंट्रोल है टेम्पल्स का. दुष्यंत जी, छत्तीसगढ़ में भी स्टेट कंट्रोल है टेम्पल्स का. ऐसी बात नहीं है, आप एक्सेप्ट करिए इस बात.
वहां के मुख्यमंत्री ने कहीं अपने
All right.
दुष्प्रचार के लिए यूज नहीं किया उनको.
All right. I'll have to interrupt there, ladies and gentlemen. Completely out of time on this debate. The credit war is certainly not ending over here, but certainly, of course, this really shows how perhaps the political goalposts have changed when we are seeing a massive credit war for such an important inauguration taking place. Perhaps a sign of times that we are living in today. Sanju Verma, Dr. Rangnathan, Dushyant Nagar, and Dr. Suman Siraman, thank you so much for joining us on debate number 2.
You were watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned. NewsHour at 9.
After Shinde faction of Shiv Sena got its name Bala Saheb Zanchi Shiv Sena yesterday, Election Commission of India allotted the two swords and shield symbol to the party. In the Gyan Vapi mosque case, the Varanasi court has deferred the order on Hindu side's plea seeking carbon dating of purported Shivling to October 14. MOS Education writes to Union Home Minister Amit Shah over violence in West Bengal. Dr. Subhas Sarkar alleged appeasement towards one community by Mamata government for electoral gains. During the funeral service of Samajwadi Party founder Mulayam Singh Yadav at Sefai in Etawah, chants of Netaji Amar Rahe reverberated as supporters gathered in huge numbers to catch a last glimpse of their leader. Supreme Court issued notice to ED on Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain's plea against transfer of case to new judge, allowed agency's petition to transfer his case to another judge. Chief Justice of India UU Lalit named Justice D.Y. Chandrachud as his successor. UU Lalit will retire on November 8 this year.
You were watching the NewsHour at 9. Stay tuned.
We are watching the NewsHour Agenda, India's most loved primetime show at 10. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Today the Prime Minister dedicated the Mahakal corridor at Ujjain Mahakal Mandir to people of India. Before the inauguration, he performed puja and aarti inside the world-famous temple. This is the fourth Jyotirling that has been renovated or beautified by this government since 2014. First it was Somnath, then Kashi, Kedarnath Dham and now Mahakaleshwar. But the message is bigger. That of shedding diffidence about Hindu culture and celebrating it openly. Today the Prime Minister also spoke of how India is confidently striding forward, talking about its heritage, displaying and celebrating its heritage to the world, reclaiming its civilizational pride and shedding the remnants of possible colonial guilt.
आप यहाँ आएंगे तो महाकाल के दर्शन के साथ ही आपको महाकाल की महिमा और महत्व के भी दर्शन होंगे। हमारे ज्योतिर्लिंगों का ये विकास भारत की आध्यात्मिक ज्योति का विकास है, भारत के ज्ञान और दर्शन का विकास है। भारत का ये सांस्कृतिक दर्शन फिर शिखर पर पहुंचकर विश्व के मार्गदर्शन के लिए तैयार हो रहा है। उज्जैन जैसे हमारे स्थान खगोल विज्ञान, एस्ट्रोनॉमी से जुड़े शोधों के शीर्ष केंद्र रहे हैं। आज नया भारत जब अपने प्राचीन मूल्यों के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है, तो आस्था के साथ साथ विज्ञान और शोध की परंपराओं को भी पुनर्जीवित कर रहा है। ये न भूले, जहां इनोवेशन है वहीं पर रिनोवेशन भी है। हमने गुलामी के कालखंड में जो खोया, आज भारत उसे रिनोवेट कर रहा है। अपने गौरव की, अपने वैभव की पुनर्स्थापना हो रही है। भाइयों और बहनों, किसी राष्ट्र का सांस्कृतिक वैभव इतना विशाल तभी होता है जब उसकी सफलता का परचम विश्व पटल पर लहरा रहा होता है। और सफलता के शिखर तक पहुंचने के लिए भी ये जरूरी है कि राष्ट्र अपने सांस्कृतिक उत्कर्ष को छुए। इसलिए आजादी के अमृत काल में भारत ने गुलामी की मानसिकता से मुक्ति और अपनी विरासत पर गर्व जैसे पंच प्राण का आह्वान किया है।
By the way, such focus has been limited not just to the Jyotirlings. Over the years, the Prime Minister has bucked the trend of shying away from an overt display of religiosity. Whether it was overseeing the rebuilding of the Kedarnath Dham after the 2013 devastation there, to the construction of all-weather Char Dham roads linking the four holy sites of Gangotri, Kedarnath, Yamunotri, Badrinath, to the restoration of temples even in Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, the Bhumi Pujan at the Ram Mandir at Ayodhya. It's all part of a grand civilizational project, but it is not without its set of heartburn, of credit wars and the propriety of a secular state associating with a religion in particular. But the most recurrent question always remains: can a developing country like India afford a temple project to talk about civilization, to talk about reviving its religion, its ancient culture, when other issues should be priority?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Alright, joining us on the debate, Lokesh Jindal, political analyst, advocate Abhishek Sudhir, spokesperson of Tiranga Shakha, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress, Hindol Sen Gupta, historian and author. But my first question is Shehzad Poonawala, national spokesperson of the BJP. Why does India in 2022 need a Mahakal corridor?
First of all, Jai Mahakal to everybody. And this is not just about one Shiv temple being renovated. This is about the revitalization and rejuvenation of the great Indian civilization and our ancient symbols of our civilization. And we can't know, as Hindol said it rightly on another show, and I'm picking up his phrase, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been from or where you come from. The greater the heights that you want to achieve, the deeper your roots need to be. So what is wrong if we are reconnecting and actually rejuvenating symbols of our Indian civilizational past? And by the way, if you wear a topi, even if you don't have any faith in iftar and roza, and you go out, that is secular. But if you put a tripund and you celebrate what is your Indian civilization, it becomes communal. If you say first right of resources of this country belong to one community, that is secular. But if you do a project which has multi-dimensional aspects, it's not just about the rejuvenation of a Hindu Astha symbol, but also rejuvenates the entire city, its economy, tourism, then then that becomes communal. You know, this kind of attitude was the reason behind why Nehru called the redevelopment of the Somnath Mandir as Hindu revivalism. This was the entire same vote bank politics because of which we saw Ayodhya ji being allowed to go on for 70 years without the Ram Mandir being built there, and the entire politics that played around it by the Congress party. This is the reason why Kedarnath was ignored after the Uttarakhand tragedy in 2013, and you know, the Congress had a state government, still they did not do what was required there. Badrinath was ignored, Somnath was ignored, Ayodhya was ignored, and it is not just about temples. It is also under the Prasad scheme. If you see, the development of the Juma Masjid has been done, Ajmer has been done, there has also been development of St. Thomas's Shrine, there has been development of all kinds of religious and other civilizational projects. So what is the harm if this is being done? And most importantly, India is at the stage where we are not only influencing the world because of our economic power, but also because of our soft civilizational power. Shouldn't a country which claims to be one of the greatest democracies also go back to its roots and develop its civilizational aspects?
Kamal Zaman Chaudhary, can anyone deny that temples in India are a part of our ancient civilization? To make them better, to make them more beautiful, to reclaim it, to show them to the world and say, yes, this is our civilization, we are proud of it. Temples along with, of course, places of worship or all other religions as well. Kamal Zaman Chaudhary.
No, Padmaja, the point is that, the temples you go on renovating, there is no end to it, because India is known for land of temples. But the basic point now is that 800 plus crores that has been spent for this particular Mahakal corridor that the Bharatiya Janata Party government is spending out there, whose money is that? The first question that anybody will be asking, is it the money siphoned out from the tourism fund, from the culture ministry, from the development of the smart cities? If it is for the smart cities, then there are another 99 plus cities which needed to be developed on the same lines. Plus you have got 80 crore people of India's population which are receiving free 5 kg rations till now. With this 800 plus crores, you would have developed at least 900 plus kilometers of roads in India. This is a pure propaganda.
And second with the point, greatest of respect, going by your logic, then we should demolish the Taj Mahal and make a housing project there for lower income group people. This is like saying, oh, there is so much land being wasted for the Qutub Minar. What purpose is serving? यहाँ पे आप high rise बना दो 25 वाले का, वहाँ पे 25,000 families रहेंगी.
What logic, Padmaja?
Why then have heritage at all? Let's demolish everything.
What is the logic out here, Padmaja?
What is the logic of having the Taj Mahal? You're just looking at it. It's basically marble.
We are proud of our history. Where
Stop looking at the Taj Mahal. Look at a photo.
The point that you just want to put it out here, let me put it in a better way. There are people, you know, the point that I want to put out across, let me just 10 more seconds. The same people who criticized when Hajj subsidy was provided to the Hajj pilgrims, the same set of people they criticized when Imams and Muazzins received a salary from, but all from the Waqf board's funds. But now
where is the money coming from?
Now I'm particularly,
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and
now you've completed what you've said, let me come in.
Okay, fine. Where is the money coming from? Why is the public money being wasted on this? Is pretty much the essence of your argument. Please let Shehzad Poonawala reply, then I really must bring in Hindol Sen Gupta. Yes, go on.
You know, I'm not surprised by the
majority appeasement.
Can you please have the basic courtesy to listen, Mr. Kamaruzzaman Chaudhary? You've made your point.
Yes, go on.
You know, I'm not surprised.
Kadwa to hoga sach, bol lo.
Go on.
Your attitude is more kadwa than your words. Now, if you hear what the words he used, he said siphoned off. Now, let me ask him that temples, and most of the temples are under state control, and you would know that states actually take the temple funds and use it on all kinds of purposes, including for building roads, building hospitals, which cater to everybody. Whereas the Waqf incomes go exclusively for only Muslim purposes, for Waqf, maybe a school or maybe a hospital or maybe whatever other concerns they have for their own community. Has the Hindu community ever asked that why are my funds being spent like this, or which are my temple funds? Now this is the kind of double standards they have. And secondly, when a Kashi Dham is developed, when a Ayodhya ji is developed, one second sir, now please let me complete.
Let's not yell over each other, we'll come back to
or when the Mahakal corridor is developed, the entire city gets a facelift, the entire city's infrastructure gets upgraded, and because of that, now in this case I was hearing Priya's report that more than double of the tourists will be arriving in Ujjain. Who will those people employ employ when they come? Will it only be one community people? Will the taxi drivers, will the people who have shops, restaurants, hotels and other establishments not get jobs because of the increased tourism?
But here is where I differ, and I want to bring in Hindol Sengupta. Should every such project be treated as some kind of, seed capital that you have to look for return on investment? That, oh, this temple must be made only because it's giving people jobs. Isn't there a larger purpose to this renovation and construction, Hindol?
No, of course, undoubtedly. I mean, it is a rather facile and a silly thing to say that, well, why are we spending so much money in rejuvenating this temple? So what if it's really ancient? So what if it was one of our greatest centers of learning, not just in India, but in the ancient world? So what that before the Greenwich Meridian, there was once an Ujjain Meridian that everybody in the world understood and knew? So what if the decimal system really originated from this place called Ujjain? Why must we renovate it? Why must we keep it properly? Because of course we're Indians, we're stupid, we must discard all our heritage, all our spirituality, and only think on how we can get return on investment on every single penny. That's a rather facile and stupid way of looking at it. I don't think that's correct, Padmaja. I really think we should look at these things as really, a sense of, that they really bring a certain cultural rejuvenation to a country which is now about to take its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. We are now the 5th largest economy in the world. We'll soon be the 3rd largest economy. We need a certain cultural, image in the world. We need a certain cultural dimension to our rise. And this dimension can only happen by looking at our past and reinvigorating our past. If we fail to invest in it, then we will just be one more also ran nation who maybe made some money. That makes no sense. This is a ridiculous way of looking at it. No country, please understand, if you look at the history, no country in the world has ever risen without a combination of cultural confidence and economics. This is the cultural confidence part.
Lokesh Jindal, we are at a point where in the UK, you've got members of parliament going around saying we must celebrate the British Raj. They don't even have a culture per se. They are saying we will celebrate the empire which slaughtered millions, which beggared countries, which colonized different nations. We are saying, why are we renovating this temple? Why don't we just let it, remain in squalor and filth? Why? Why don't you want to be proud of what you have? Every country does it.
Good evening, Padmaja. Padmaja, do you know why we were colonized? We got colonized because our society had become too much stagnant in superstition, and it had not modernized the manner in which Europe got modernized. Rationality was not the characteristic of our society. That was the reason why we got colonized. It's important that the society bears certain ethos, way of thinking, via which it modernizes, develops and progresses itself. Now, this particular temple corridor, it was the brainchild of Congress. Let me give you an instance. It was Kamal Nath ji on 19th of August. This is a news report where it states that 300 crore से संवरेगा राजा का दरबार, विकास और विस्तार की योजना पर सीएम कमल नाथ ने किया मंथन. So it's not that the Congress is against this particular form of preserving our rich cultural heritage, but only focusing upon our rich cultural heritage and turning a blind eye to modernity, to reason, towards what the nation is progressing towards. Okay, I agree that there were astronomical
So because the Mahakal corridor has been made, all of us have dropped out of college and we are sitting at home unlettered. Because Mahakal corridor has been made, suddenly all our satellites have crashed to the ground.
The point is,
and science and computers have been smashed to bits. How are the two mutually exclusive?
The point is trying to claim that whatever astronomy we have today was the outcome of Ujjain Observatory, or trying to condemn that it was who gave math to the world, and trying to glorify the ancient Raj at the cost of the present future.
Okay, there are two parts to your argument. I will let Hindol Sengupta address the first part about colonialism and how because we are so backward and dirty we got colonized, and the second about Kamal Nath being the real reason this has been done. Shehzad Poonawala will answer. Yes, Hindol Sengupta.
That is so ridiculous that my mic actually muted itself, I think. This is ridiculous.
we were colonized because before our colonizers came, there was another really many hundred years of invasions in our country that broke the back of the country, which led to the British finally coming and colonizing us. Really, to suggest that we got colonized because we had temples and we were also superstitious, we were all hiding in temples, that is the most facile and the most historical thing I've ever heard in any television debate I've ever had the misfortune of going to. That is ridiculous. Really, this makes no sense. The point is, we even today, I mean, Ujjain, forget the science. Ujjain, you want to talk about culture and literature. Ujjain is the home of Kalidas, for crying out loud. I mean, Ujjain is one of the greatest sites of our civilization as far as culture, as far as literature is concerned. Kalidas, for crying out loud, came from Ujjain. So, you know, these kinds of arguments really make no sense.
And this, by the way, is the same bunch of people who get terribly upset when you say, oh, you can explore Hindi as a linked language in states where Hindi is the spoken language, and they say no, English should be the main language in our country, and now you're talking about colonization, now about Kamal Nath, from colonization to Kamal Nath.
Just a line on colonization. So is Mr. Lokesh Jindal trying to suggest that there were some missionaries on a project to revive us and to revive our societies, and they came here with the noble intention to actually contribute? Colonizers and invaders went where they found wealth and richness, and yes, India was a center of economy, India was a center of learning, India was a center of activity. That's why these forces came here to loot and to take away that loot back home. So they did not come here because we were backward to make us forward. This is the most inferiority complex driven argument I've ever heard, but that's not the real point. Let me come to the other point, Kamal Nath's contribution. Let me complete, Mr. Jindal, please, let's not have this you speak when you have an opportunity. Let me complete my point. But let me complete my point, sir. You can speak what you want, but at least have courtesy to allow another person to complete.
Just before you go to Kamal Nath, let me, since you spoke of colonization, by the way, India is one of the very few British colonies which retained its original religion, sir. There were many other colonies in Africa who were completely turned Christian. India remained a country with a large Hindu population because of this civilization, which you think is completely not needed at this point. Please go on.
Now, as far as Kamal Nath and the Congress party trying to seek credit for this, first of all, the entire project was conceptualized after Prime Minister Modi came into governance in 2014. In 2016, the DPR was created. In 2017, 2018, it was tendered for, and even the money was allocated and the work was implemented and done all under Shivraj Singh Chauhan government. In fact, the Congress only stonewalled it, just like they stonewalled Somnath. You remember what Nehru said? Hindu revivalism for Somnath Mandir being rebuilt. You know what the Congress said for Ayodhya ji? They said that for 70 years they first latkawed, bhatkawed it. They said Ramji does not exist. They gave an affidavit to that extent, and then the lawyer went to court saying that it should be postponed for after the elections. In Kedarnath, 2013, when the Uttarakhand floods came, what did you do to revive and rejuvenate Kedarnath? Nothing, until the BJP government came in the center and the BJP government came into the state. Then Badrinath, the Char Dham roads. No, one second, sir. Now let me explain to you. You tell me how many mandirs you vandalized, mandirs which were there in Jammu Kashmir, which were put into complete disuse by the Islamists out there. How many of those mandirs did you revive when you had the opportunity between 2004 to 14? You did nothing. And finally, Kamruzaman Chaudhary ji. अरे Kamruzaman Chaudhary ji, आपको इतना दुख हो रहा है कि हम अपने सिविलाइजेशनल पास्ट को जा रहे हैं. आपने तो अपने नाम से अभी तक अपना सिविलाइजेशनल पास्ट नहीं हटाया है. चौधरी को इस्लामिक सरनेम तो है नहीं. आप अपना सरनेम भी चौधरी रखे हुए हैं क्योंकि आपको अपनी हेरिटेज, अपनी सिविलाइजेशन पर इतना गर्व है. और आप देश जब अपनी सिविलाइजेशन पर गर्व मनाता है, इंडोनेशिया में मुसलमान है बहुसंख्यक, पर आज भी उनके प्रतीक जो है, उनके राष्ट्र प्रतीक जो है, उसमें श्री राम दिखते हैं. उनकी करेंसी नोट से लेकर उनके विमान तक वहां पर रामायण के चिन्ह दिखते हैं. और यहां पर कुछ लोग हैं जो अयोध्या जी, जो राम जी, जो कृष्ण जी, जो शिव जी को मानने से इनकार करते हैं.
Okay, very quick rebuttal from Lokesh Jindal. And since you mentioned Kashmir, by the way, I want to play these images of how a Mahaganesh temple has been reopened after 33 years in North Kashmir. This was a temple that was set on fire by terrorists in 2006. And after all of this time, it was first demolished, then it was again set on fire in 2006, and finally after 33 years, it has finally got an active puja happening. Yes, quick response from Lokesh Jindal, then I want to bring in Abhishek Sudhir. Yes, go on.
See, all I want to say is Hinduism, the glory of Hinduism is not in simply erecting huge monuments and display of awe and grandeur. the entire essence of Hinduism in Nihashresh, where Aranyaka and Upanishad, they had their essence in simplicity, in Vairag. It talked about Aham Brahmasmi, it talked about the universe within Sarva Dharma Sambhava.
Okay, so name two things that were done in the past government to just popularize the Upanishads. You are saying, okay, temples are incidental, the Upanishads is where the essence of our civilization lies. What was done to popularize the Upanishads by the UPA government?
To our political ends.
So sure, by all means, celebrate whatever part you want.
Wonderful religion that we have inherited.
What did the UPA government do to popularize the Upanishads? Was there any Vedic study done? Was there any scholarship set up for the study of Upanishads? What was done?
Let me answer, madam. The Kalidas University in Ramtek was the outcome of the Congress government. The Congress government during its time period, it had introduced various forms of funds. In fact, Deccan Education Society, it came out with a Sanskrit dictionary so as to translate the entire Upanishad and ancient text into English so as to make it available for the people at large. That is one of the greatest lexicon dictionaries in the world. So
okay, let Hindos and Gupta come on this. To pretend that this is happening only for the last 8 years would be disingenuous. This has been an ongoing project, government after government. Hindos and Gupta.
No, I first want to answer this point about Hinduism is not about temples. Again, like this really is the evening where I must hear every ridiculous nonsense. Are you kidding me? Hinduism's entire point is that there are sacred sites. We are a sacred geography. These sites are fundamental to Hinduism. What are we even talking about? And yes, are we going through a long-range cultural revolution, a cultural renaissance, a Hindu renaissance? Of course, there have been bits and pieces before also. Who's to deny that? But it is undeniable that in the last decade, because we have come to a particular point in our history, there is an overarching coming together, a confluence of forces, whether it's political, whether it's social, whether it's cultural, whether it's academic, whether it's economic, which are coming together to enable us to look at our own past, to look at our own civilization, because I underline, we are a civilizational state. We are not a Westphalian nation state. We are a civilizational state, and this is core to who we are.
And Abhishek Sudhir, there was a slogan in the Ram Mandir entire movement, Garv se kaho hum Hindu hain. Now in a sense you see it in play, where people are being told this is your reclamation of your heritage and there is no need to be embarrassed or diffident about it. What's wrong with that?
Padmaja, you've come to me last, so just give me some time. I want to make a few comments which are going to irk Shehzad Poonawalla, so please urge him to exercise restraint, and I will hear him out without interrupting him as long as he does me the same courtesy. Shehzad Poonawalla opened the debate by saying Jai Mahakal. Now Shehzad Poonawalla bought in the religion of another panelist, so it is only fair that we talk about him as well and his past. Right? In the Constitution Club of India, this very same Shehzad Poonawalla referred to Narendra Modi as a Hindu majoritarian leader, and on Twitter, he tweeted that Narendra Modi is Desi Hitler. What has changed for Shehzad Poonawalla? Shehzad Poonawalla has seen the direction in which the winds are blowing. Shehzad Poonawalla, who is not a Hindu, mind you, accuses Lokesh Jindal and me and people like us of being anti-Hindu. A non-Hindu saying we are anti-Hindu. So I said don't interrupt. Padmaja, you need to anchor the show. Padmaja, you need to anchor the show. Padmaja, you need to anchor the show. Padmaja, you need to anchor the show.
I am anchoring the show, but since you have claimed that he is not a Hindu, you are saying I am Hindu.
Give me 30 seconds. You have to give me 30 seconds.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
You have to give me 30 seconds. You have to give me 30 seconds.
Go on, 30 seconds, yes.
Shehzad Poonawalla's Twitter bio says, Shehzad Poonawalla's Twitter bio says, my religion is Islam, my way of life is Hinduism. Okay, he has said that. Now Shehzad Poonawalla, what gives you the right to question me, a Hindu, born a Hindu, I will die a Hindu, about my credentials for Hinduism? You are using my religion.
Hold on a second, Abhishek Sudhir, this is not about you or Shehzad Poonawalla or me or anyone else. We are debating a larger question, sir, that what is the objective of this entire project? It is not about whether Shehzad Poonawalla believes in it or whether he will go to Mahakal or he will do the Aarti or he can say Jai Mahakal. It is about what is the intention and objective. Anyhow, on that note, because this is going completely off track, the simple point is that to celebrate one's heritage, one's civilization and one's religion is in no way to show down or deny anyone else's. And if in our country we can celebrate the Taj Mahal for decades and decades as the symbol of Indian civilization, there is no reason we cannot do the same for Mahakaleshwar as well. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me. A famous argument made. In a secular state, is there place for a prime minister in a temple? To talk about that and more, I'm joined by author Ashwin Sanghi. Very often when there's any such event, a lot of people wonder whether there should be a separation between the state and religion, whether that line is being blurred, and more importantly, what is the need? What is the need for another temple when you need jobs? So let's talk about that and also the civilizational question of why such projects are needed. Joining us is author Ashwin Sanghi. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Let me start by asking you, sir, of course, Mahakal Lok, the corridor has just been inaugurated. Do you think that this revamp is aimed towards some kind of grander project of a great Hindutva renaissance?
Well, Padmaja, the truth is that whether it is the Bhumi Pujan that happened at Ayodhya, whether it is the revamp of Kashi Vishwanath, or now whether it is the Mahakaleshwar corridor, these are all wonderful first steps in reconnecting us with our civilizational heritage. But honest to God, I must say to you tonight that ye dil mange more. I mean, our sad reality is that the Mahakaleshwar temple's revenues as well as its lands are controlled by the state government by an act known as the Mahakaleshwar Mandir Act of 1982. So it is a government appointed committee and administrator who micromanage every aspect of the temple, including the pujaris, the donations, the land acquisition for public purposes, even the licenses for selling prasadam. In the last 12 months, the temple has had a revenue of around roughly 81 crores in the last 12 months. But that's about 22 lakhs a day. And this is one temple. There are 4 lakh such temples that are under various forms of government control. So yes, I am very, very proud of the Prime Minister for having done what he has done and for making such a humongous effort towards revitalizing these cultural heritage spots and these spiritual spots. But it is about time that the fundamental issue of freeing Hindu temples is taken up seriously, and that will be the real renaissance, Padmaja. I mean, prior to British rule, Hindu temples were administered and managed by local communities, which meant that the wealth could be actually utilized for civilizational and cultural purposes. It was used to promote art, culture, schools, cow shelters, rest houses, dispensaries, gaushalas, local charities. But then, of course, the British came along and then everything changed as a result of a 1925 law. You would have imagined that post-independence, this should have undergone a transformation. Instead, we had the first Tamil Nadu Act being passed in 1959, and thereafter a slew of South governments decided to take over temples. So as a result of which, Tamil Nadu today controls 44,000 temples. Andhra Pradesh controls 33,000 temples. In fact, 15 Indian states have acts that have legalized this religious discrimination, which gives power to state governments to be able to exercise control over the finances of 4 lakh places of worship. So while I heartily congratulate Pradhan Mantri ji for his efforts to energize and revitalize, I believe that the real renaissance is yet to come.
So if people argue that state and religion should be kept separate, they should also question why state gets to earn from people's faith and people's religion. Coming to that though, we heard it during the Ram Janmabhoomi, when the Bhumi Pujan happened, the Prime Minister went for it. Today when he's inaugurating the Mahakal corridor, that what business does the Prime Minister of a secular country have going to a mandir and be seen very prominently with a tripund, with chandan, with a tilak? He shouldn't have any of that.
Yeah. Well, think about this, Padmaja, that Modi ji in that sense is simply preserving not necessarily a religious ethos, but civilizational ethos. Think of this. Does the King of England, being the head of the Church of England, interfere with the secularism of the UK? Or does the American president holding the national prayer breakfast each year interfere with American secularism? Does the French government restoring the Notre Dame Cathedral after the fire interfere with France's secularism? If there is one country that is very proud of its secular credentials, it's probably France. In fact, there's an article within German basic law that gives religious education an important role in civic education in Germany. Does that affect its secularism? So there will always be those who decry the Prime Minister's actions, the ones who say that this violates secularism. But honestly, let's ask ourselves the question, what does the term secular mean? Strictly, it means that there should be separation in totality of church and state. In a secular nation, the government must stay away from anything religious. But India fails entirely if that is the definition. For example, how could a government have codified and modified Hindu personal law in the 1950s if we were secular? How could India recognize Sharia-based Muslim personal law? How could state governments take over management of Hindu temples? Pursuant to the Shah Bano case, how was the Muslim Women's Protection of Rights Act of 1986 passed? How are subsidies extended under the Hajj Committee Act? How are special provisions under the Waqf Act of 1995 passed? So these and many more such actions would clearly fall outside the remit of a secular nation, and that is why the writers of the preamble realized that it was better not to use the term secular rather than to use it dishonestly. The word secular was only inserted by a lame duck parliament in the emergency years. You and I both know that. But did the insertion of secular in 1975-76 imply that India had not been secular prior to 1975-76? Had the omission of the word turned India into a Hindu Rashtra? Not at all. By leaving the word out of the preamble, the fathers of our constitution were making it incumbent on Hindus to remember their commitment to the Upanishadic ideal of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That the world is one family. The framers of the constitution were subtly saying that the Indian ethos is essentially Hindu in character, but that the ethos implied an ingrained respect and tolerance of all faiths. India is secular today because of its Hindu ethos, its civilization. What happens to all of this when you go to the 49 Muslim majority countries around the world? The only way to preserve secularism in India is by maintaining that Hindu syncretism. We are proud of our Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb of India. For every Bhimsen Joshi, we have a Zakir Hussain. For every Vikram Sarabhai, we have an Abdul Kalam. But then ask yourself, why is that Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb not maintained in Bangladesh or Pakistan? Look at Indonesia or Malaysia. These are countries which are mostly Islamic in terms of faith, but yet they have preserved their pride in terms of their Hindu roots. So why is it not possible for us to do that? And I think that is pretty much what the Prime Minister seems to be doing.
Because, you know, in a way, if you see in popular culture or in the way that a lot of visualization that happens now, Hinduism and Hindutva has become almost synonymous. People say that this is Hindutva is more of a militant ideology. So when you see, you know, a Mahakal with a Trishul and a Prime Minister with a Tripund, suddenly there is this fear, there is a paranoia that this is a country where I am not going to be safe if I am not a Hindu.
Yeah. But think about this, honestly speaking, I mean, the Hinduism, or what we can consider civilization or the ethos emanating from what we consider to be Sanatan Dharma, is one of the very few pre-Bronze Age civilizations to have survived to this day. I mean, do you see Zoroastrianism thriving in Iran? What happened to the Mithraic cults of Rome? What happened to Ra, Osiris and Horus of the Egyptians? What happened to Zeus or Apollo and Athena of the Greeks? What happened to the tribal belief systems and languages of the Aboriginal peoples of Australia? Most pagan belief systems could not withstand the onslaught of Abrahamic thought. But Hinduism survived against all odds. And that's why I believe that the PM is right to be able to preserve and nurture it. I mean, think about this. The very temple that we are talking about, the Mahakaleshwar Mandir, was destroyed by Iltutmish of the Delhi Sultanate in 1235. In fact, it was rebuilt in 1734 by the Maratha general Ranoji Shinde. And this is not the only wound to Hindu civilization. What Nepal calls the wounded civilization, this is not the only wound. The attacks on Somnath, the burning of Nalanda, the destruction of Ram Janmabhoomi, the destruction of Kashi Vishwanath and Mathura. According to Sitaram Goel, the number of temples destroyed or desecrated was around 40,000. And to think that all of this cruelty was perpetuated on a population that prided itself on providing sanctuary to others. That is why this entire bogey does not really hold good. Zoroastrian refugees fleeing Muslim persecution in Iran were provided a home in Gujarat by a Hindu king, Jadi Rana. St. Thomas Christians were provided a home in Kerala. The first Jewish refugees settled over 2 millennia ago on the Malabar coast, and a second wave arrived pursuant to their expulsion from Iberia. When Buddhist monks were being butchered by the People's Liberation Army of China, India welcomed the Dalai Lama along with thousands of Buddhists. The country has accepted millions of refugees from Bangladesh during the 1971 genocide. The Baghdadi Jews and the Bene Israel from Pakistan were sheltered in India. So that spirit of refuge is intrinsic to India's dharmic values. Let me just end this particular segment on this particular thought I have, that what we are talking about is not just an issue of secularism, but the problem that people seem to have with the preservation of dharmic thought. And dharmic thought in itself is essentially plural. It embraces multiple truths. You can have 33 million deities can be part of that same family. Jesus Christ can be incorporated on the facade of a Hindu temple. Buddha can be absorbed as the 9th avatar of Vishnu. You could be Astic, Nastic, Shaivite, Vaishnavite, vegetarian, carnivore, omnivore, whatever you like. You can be a fire worshipper, idol worshipper, nature worshipper. You can worship Shiva, Shakti, or a combination of both. You may see the path to enlightenment as yantra, tantra, mantra, and all of it is acceptable within the ethos of dharmic thought. And therefore, in that sense, if we can preserve dharmic ethos, then we have the best shot at being able to preserve our secularism, being able to preserve our pluralism, as it were.
Thanks very much, Ashwin Sanghi. That was very engrossing. Thanks as always. It's lovely speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Padmaja. Thank you.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
You can't.
After Shinde faction of Shiv Sena got its name Bala Saheb Zanchi Shiv Sena yesterday, Election Commission of India allotted the 2 swords and shield symbol to the party. In the Gyanvapi mosque case, the Varanasi court has deferred the order on Hindu side's plea seeking carbon dating of purported Shivling to October 14. MOS Education writes to Union Home Minister Amit Shah over violence in West Bengal. Dr. Subhas Sarkar alleged appeasement towards one community by Mamata government for electoral gains. During the funeral service of Samajwadi Party founder Mulayam Singh Yadav at Saifai in Etawah, chants of Netaji Amar Rahe reverberated as supporters gathered in huge numbers to catch a last glimpse of their leader. Supreme Court issued notice to ED on Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain's plea against transfer of case to new judge, allowed agency's petition to transfer his case to another judge. Chief Justice of India UU Lalit named Justice D.Y. Chandrachud as his successor. UU Lalit will retire on November 8 this year.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
You can't be six.
The News Hour at 10.
Supreme Court issued notice to ED on Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain's plea against transfer of case to new judge. Allowed agency's petition to transfer his case to another judge. Chief Justice of India UU Lalit named Justice D.Y. Chandrachud as his successor. UU Lalit will retire on November 8 this year. NCPCR has written to EC seeking action against Cong's Bharat Jodo Yatra, saying the party is violating law by involving children, making it a Bacche Jodo campaign. 5 individuals connected to the D gang were arrested by Mumbai police in connection with an extortion case. This comes after the arrest of Salim Fruit, close aide of gangster Chota Shakil and Riaz Bhati. In a big development in the Bhopal gas tragedy case, Centre has informed the SC that it would pursue curative petition filed in 2010 by Manmohan Singh government seeking additional compensation of over Rs 7,400 crore from DOW Chemicals. Former all-rounder Roger Binney is reportedly all set to replace Sourav Ganguly as BCCI president. Binney played a vital role in securing India's victory at the 1983 Cricket World Cup by taking highest number of wickets.
You can't.